What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories.
Full Conqueror's Haki. 1 FC. Chapter 1. Recruit directly became Marine Admiral. Advertisement. What? 4th Admiral, Marine Headquarters, inside the Marshal's office. Sakazuki slammed his hands on the table and stood up, questioning with excitement in his eyes. In the Marshal's office, the legendary Vice Admiral Garp, Marine General Staff Ms. Crane, Admiral Aokiji, and Kizaru were all present. It also revealed deep doubts and incomprehension. This is good, and the appointment of the 4th Admiral was announced suddenly, which really surprised everyone. Marshal Marine Sengoku sat at the desk, holding his arms, with a stack of papers on the desk, with a serious expression. Mr. Sengoku, Marine's highest combat power admiral has always been 3. Although there is no explicit stipulation, this is still a tradition, right? Aokiji Kuzan scratched his head, also feeling a headache. After all, there is one more admiral, and there are too many things involved. Kizaru Pelusolino also raised his head, looking at Marshal Sengoku, the doubt in his eyes could understand the meaning without saying it. Others don't matter. Will having an additional admiral affect his salary? Garp Vice Admiral and Ms. He, the Chief Staff Officer, sitting on the other side of the sofa, looked confused. The 4th highest combat power is enough to cause an uproar in the world. What is his outstanding color? Ms. He squeezed her face with her hands and asked earnestly. This matter is already an operation that breaks the rules. As Marine Marshal Sengoku, no one knows the impact of an admiral better than him. So what is special about this person who can be promoted to admiral? Hey, Sengoku, you know exactly what an admiral represents. Who is so honored and promoted to 4th admiral? Garp also doesn't care about other things, and is very curious to be the guy in admiral. Sengoku glanced at Sakazuki who was standing up and still gritting his teeth, and picked up a few from the stack of papers on the table. Sakazuki, sit down first. I know this incident will surprise you, but it's also something that Mariajoy has approved. Sengoku raised the file in his hand to Garp and others, and pointed to the photo on it. Sakazuki also sat down and looked at the photo in Marshal Sengoku's hands with everyone. The picture shows a young man wearing a white t-shirt with a lazy look. So young, everyone couldn't help but stunned. Throughout all previous admiral, the youngest is at least 30 years old, right? This man seems to be in his early 20s. Sha Shing joined Marine as a recruit 6 months ago to participate in training. Sengoku's first sentence almost made Sakazuki burst into lava. Recruit. At this moment, even Ms. Crane, Garp and Aokiji Kizaru couldn't help making incredible noises. Since he joined Marine, he hasn't participated in training well, either fishing or lazy somewhere, but even so, the recruit from the same class, no, even instructor is not his opponent. Seeing Sakazuki's face getting darker and darker, Marshal Sengoku continued to speak before it broke out completely. At this time, Garp, Suru, and the 3 generals were all attracted by Sengoku's words. If you don't practice, no one can beat him. Sakazuki finally didn't get irritable, but asked suspiciously. Kuzan, Porcelino, Garp, and Crane were also taken aback. The recruit training camp is basically Rear Admiral level as the instructor. Advertisement. Yes, because he has awakened Conqueror's Haki. You can control Conquerors skillfully and defeat all recruits without taking a shot. Sengoku took the first page of photos on the table and said solemnly. Garp, Crane and Sonda will not help but open their mouths, with a look of astonishment. The recruit from Marine actually has Conqueror's Haki. All 5 of them forgot about being promoted to Admiral, but were shocked that Sha Shing had Conqueror's Haki. Conqueror's Haki, only 1 out of a million people will have this qualification. And being able to master Conquerors is at least the intermediate level. In Marine, no one has awakened Conqueror's Haki except Marshal Sengoku and Garp Vice Admiral. Because these powers are innate in one's life, they cannot be cultivated, and they can only be passively strong by relying on their own growth. A recruit can awaken this kind of power. What kind of person does this guy want to be a master? However, just Conqueror's Haki does not seem to be enough to become an admiral. After all, Marine Admiral represents the highest combat power. Even if you want to be promoted, you must first fully grow from the alternate admiral, right? Ms. He was the first to react, and looked at Marshal Sengoku and said solemnly. Such things are very strange in Marine, but in New World, there are more pirates with Conqueror's Haki than Crucian Carp who cross the river. Everyone also reacted and looked at Sengoku. So, there is. Sengoku put down the second document at this time and picked up the third one. You all went out to perform the task in the recruit assessment some time ago, so I don't know. This Sha Shing participated in the assessment, and all recruits were directly suppressed by his Conqueror's Haki, and even the weapons were completely broken by Haki. Sengoku narrowed his eyes, and said that he couldn't help but shake. What's even more outrageous is that there is also a Vice Admiral present who was secretly observing, and now this Vice Admiral is still in the infirmary. He was shocked by Conqueror's Haki. Vice Admiral was stunned by Conqueror's Haki. Sakazuki was completely shocked this time, his eyes widened. This is not as simple as awakening Conqueror's Haki. Aokiji, Kizaru, Garp, and Ms. Suru all showed incredible expressions. Can stun Vice Admiral with Conqueror's Haki. Broken weapons, this is causing real damage. That Vice Admiral, it's T-Dolphin. A different kind of light flashed in Marshal Sengoku's eyes. Alternate Admiral, T-Dolphin. Even the red-haired Shanks can't make an alternate admiral stunned. Garp couldn't help but stand up in shock at this time. What kind of evildoer is this? Kuzan grabbed his hands on his head and said in disbelief. This Sha Shing, did you eat Conqueror's Haki fruit? Top Conqueror's Haki. At this time, everyone present understood the decision of Mariajoy and Sengoku. Even Sakazuki didn't say much, his face was silent. The growing Conqueror's Haki is even more powerful than the Logia fruit. It can grow to the level of the top Conqueror's Haki, and it can be counted by the palm of a living person. All are top powerhouses. It seems that there is no problem in strength to become admiral. And this time, the protagonist of the discussion, Sha Shing, lay on the bed in the dormitory and sneezed a few times. Damn, who is talking about me? Asterisk. Chapter 2. How did conquerors come? Intrinsic. Advertisement. During the recruit training camp, Sha Shing had several sneezes in a row. He whispered a few times, touched his capable short hair, and then got up and looked out the window. White clouds in the blue sky. Coupled with the comfortable sea breeze, Sha Shing couldn't help but stretch out comfortably. Then, one leaned back, lay down again. It's so comfortable. Sha Shing narrowed his eyes comfortably, and the sea breeze slowly came in. Although there is no computer and Wi-Fi, the sea breeze is not bad. Yes, Sha Shing is a traverser. Half a year ago, he suddenly crossed into the world of One Piece. At first I woke up in the dormitory of this Marineford recruit training camp. Sha Shing thought all this was just a dream. Sha Shing didn't know that she had crossed until a piece of information emerged in her mind. The identity is still an innocent family, the legacy of Marine fighters, who just joined Marine as a recruit. Why not celestial dragons? At that time, Sha Shing thumped her chest and sighed. Turned out to be a tough Marine recruit. If it is celestial dragons, you can really make a salted fish. Drink tea every day, tease the beautiful slaves, lie down and enjoy life, and directly reach the goal of life. Yes, Sha Shing is lazy, too lazy to sit and never stand, can lie down and never sit, especially afraid of trouble. Before crossing, he was a professional, lying flat youth, and salted fish. Before coming to this world, Sha Shing was from a well-off family and had no worries about food and clothing, but he did not look like a motivated young man. Although he was very smart and talented, he learned everything very quickly, but he was too lazy to stay at home every day. Watch Philo, surf the internet, get a full score. But now that I have personally experienced the journey, and it is still my favorite world of One Piece, I am still a little excited after slowing down. But becoming a marine recruiter made Sha Shing a bit of a headache. How can you continue to lie down? This pirate's world is still very dangerous. Just when Sha Shing sighed up to the sky, with a bitter expression on her face, the necessary cheat as a traverser arrived. Bind successfully. Congratulations to host Sha Shing for awakening the salted fish growth system. Host only needs to sign in every day to get the system value, and when the value is reached, you can receive an ability. The current initial package can be selected, and the selected ability can grow infinitely. The voice of the salted fish growth system was like a little girl's voice in Sha Xing's mind. A high-tech style system panel also emerged in Sha Xing's mind. Open black lens bracket host. Sha Shing. Conqueror's Haki. 0. Observation Haki. 0. Armament Haki. 0. Swordsmanship. 0. Physical skills. 0. Remaining attribute points. 0. Reaching 3000 can unlock new abilities. Currently newcomer rewards can be claimed. Close black lens bracket. A very simple panel. The stunned Sha Shing quickly accepted the awakening of the system. Excited immediately, he launched the newcomer reward. Get the newcomer spree. 1000 attribute points. The system's clear voice said, and various abilities options appeared in his mind. Attribute points. That means adding points to become stronger. Glancing at the panel, Sha Shing hardly hesitated and made a decisive choice. System, add all 1000 attribute points to conquerors. Whether it's armed S**X, seeing or hearing S**X, physical skills, swordsmanship, all of these have one thing in common, that is, they need to fight close to people and do hands-on with them. Only conquerors don't use it. It is simply the first choice for salted fish. Being able to do nothing without doing it is the purpose of Sha Xing's life. Advertisement. At the same time, Sha Shing also wants to know what the effect of Conqueror's Haki, the most special and infinite growth in Conqueror's Haki, will have. Add some success. As soon as the sound of the system fell, Sha Xing's body burst into a powerful aura, and the items in the room were all blasted flying. Sha Shing took another look. Conqueror's Haki. 1000 points top level. Directly at the top, Sha Xing's thoughts moved, controlling this deterrent force and retracting it. Current location, Naval Headquarters Recruit Training Camp, do you sign in? Sign in. Sha Shing was still feeling the power of awakening in her body, and she immediately confirmed when she heard the voice of the system. Get attribute points for the first sign in, 100. After signing in and getting 100 attribute points, Sha Shing smiled happily. Very decisive, Sha Shing was directly added to conquerors. Not surprisingly, his conquerors ushered in another huge increase. The body also felt comfortable. And the next step is simple. Sha Shing started her fishing day, and checked in every day in the training camp. Although instructor is crazy about Sha Shing, who is lazy to ultimate, the days are still a tenton. The attribute points that are checked in every day, without exception, are all added to conquerors. So conqueror's Haki is constantly getting stronger, even to the point of exaggeration. But not every day can get the same attribute points. Only 50 o'clock the next day. Only 25 o'clock on the third day. On the fourth day, there was only 12 o'clock. In the end, only one attribute point increased for the check-in every day. Sha Shing is a bit speechless. How will conquerors grow after this? There is still 3,000 to unlock new abilities. Is this going to be the year of the monkey? Fortunately, Sha Shing is too lazy to ask for any new abilities, as long as there is conquerors. Check in at a new location to get more system attribute points rewards. At this time, the system also prompts. Really? Let's forget it. Sha Shing decisively chose to lie down and be a small salted fish. It's too much trouble to find a new place. Run everywhere, take risks everywhere. Does not meet the identity of Sha Shing salted fish. So just like that, I would rather increase at one every day, and Sha Shing doesn't bother to move. After half a year, the recruiter was assessed. As long as you pass the assessment, you can officially become Marine. This is an assessment that every recruit must participate in. Sha Shing doesn't want to make a move, but there is no way to avoid it, so you can just try your own Conqueror's Haki strength. As soon as he played, Sha Shing unleashed a terrifying deterrent force, and directly caused the recruits who had competed with him to faint to the ground, and the weapons shattered on the spot. The powerful momentum impacted the audience, and even secretly observed, the alternate Admiral T. Dolphin responsible for protecting the lives of recruits, hiding in the tree and also being fully released by Sha Shing Conqueror's Haki stunned to the ground. The news reached Sengoku's office, and it happened that the military commander Kong and people from the world government were present. The three of them couldn't help being shocked, and quickly asked Sha Shing to go to Sengoku's office. It's a pity that Sha Shing, who was rarely picked up, has run out of sign-ins that day, otherwise he can sign in at Marineford. Next, is a series of experiences that made Sha Shing confused. As soon as they arrived, the Sengoku trio stared at themselves and began to inquire. During this time, even Kong tried to test and felt Sha Xing's exaggerated Conqueror's Haki. The trio were shocked. Top Conqueror's Haki. After looking at each other, he took Sha Shing directly to Mariajoy to meet 5 elders. Although the majesty of 5 elders and the 2 marshals is very strong, Sha Shing doesn't feel much, asking what to answer and what to answer. As for Conqueror's Haki, born, I don't know. Asterisk. Chapter 3. Armed color can be overlaid on conquerors. Advertisement. 5 elders and Sengoku. Kong naturally knew this innate power, and after excluding the possibility of spies, everyone talked and was nominated as Admiral by Sengoku. Sha Shing looked confused, a bit inexplicable. I was nominated as Admiral right away. What's more unexpected is that 5 elders nodded in agreement. Sha Shing didn't react until it was pulled out of power. Admiral, isn't that busy, and have to face all kinds of troubles? Admiral, for such an important position, I think I still don't have the ability. Sha Shing just wanted to go back and refused to 5 elders. Before she turned her body, she was stared back by Kong with a hatred of iron and steel. 5 elders' decision is that you can't do it. The laziness of this guy was thoroughly seen by the two. At this time, Sengoku launched a lure offensive nearby. Do you know what it will be like to become an admiral? You will be admired by thousands of people, except celestial dragons and me, you will not be ordered by anyone, and you will not have to live in a new house every day. With a good salary, you can eat whatever you want with all kinds of delicacies. The subordinate Sha Shing had no interest at all, but his eyes lit up when he heard the food. Pineapple pie, no need to do anything. There is a special offer from Marine, which is more delicious than other places, and as an admiral, it is a symbol of deterring crimes at sea. What can you do? Sengoku nodded seriously and said seriously. Kong couldn't help having a black line. If there is anything that can make Sha Shing less lazy for the time being, it is his favorite delicacy, pineapple pie, and he can stay away from work. In Sengoku's painting of the big pineapple pie, Sha Shing finally agreed. So there was a scene from the Marshal's office. Marineford Naval Headquarters. In Marshal Sengoku's office, Akainu, Aokiji, and Kizaru, 3 will be with Garp, Ms. Crane, after listening to Sengoku's description of Sha Shing, were all shocked. A recruit has awakened. Conqueror's Haki is amazing enough. The awakened Conqueror's Haki still has a realm that is suspected of being the top. Where is this recruit so bold? Top Haki, then Admiral level combat power is absolutely fine. Aokiji Kuzan touched his forehead and said, this is really a shocking guy. Garp and Ms. he agreed. And Akainu Sakazuki watched it again seriously, and I have to say that it is impossible to falsify Marine's information, not to mention that there are 2 marshals personally present. This Sha Shing is real, but Sakazuki still feels uneasy. Admiral is Marine's highest combat power after all, and it is also a deterrent force that makes the pirates fearful. At least you can't put an undernamed guy to make 7 warlords of the sea, 4 emperors joke. Sakazuki looked at Marshal Sengoku solemnly. I want to call him over to see if he is qualified to be admiral. After saying this, both Aokiji and Kizaru nodded in agreement. Seeing is believing, it is also a good way for Sakazuki to check the depth of this Sha Shing. Sengoku frowned. It's normal for the 3 admiral to respond, but after all, he and Kong invited him. What if Sha Shing gets emotional? Anyway, the position of admiral is very important, or it would be best to call in and check it out. Garp looked like it wasn't too much to see the excitement. He drank a sip of tea and said with a smile. Akainu Sakazuki was just uncomfortable. A recruit suddenly took the position of admiral. After all, which admiral does not come up layer by layer? I let him over, but don't arouse the newcomer's disgust. Advertisement. Marshal Sengoku also nodded helplessly. This is the talent that I have worked so hard to flicker, hardly recruited. I'm afraid Akainu Sakazuki's attitude is not good. But this is the only way for everyone to agree. Then he made a call and went out. So, a few minutes later, Sha Shing received a notice to go to Marineford. The recruit training camp is very close to Marineford, and the marine ship arrived soon. Sha Shing was wearing a marine t-shirt alone. On Marineford Oaks Square, he looked up at the huge fortress and the seagull and Libra logo on the fortress. System, sign in. The last time I came in a hurry, the number of check-ins per day ran out. This time it was finally signed. Location Marineford Marine Headquarters, sign in successfully, get 200 attribute points. Sure enough, famous locations are different. Sha Shing smiled brightly. He glanced at his current Conqueror's value, 1301. Adding this 200 is enough to reach 1500. And even if the decline continues, 1 or 200 will be paid in a few days, it's worth more than half a year in his previous place. But he didn't think much about this stuff. Anyway, salted fish, attributes or something, it doesn't matter if it has it doesn't matter if it doesn't. But this time, he did not choose to add Conquerors all. Instead, a little bit was added to the armed color. After all, it's going to be Admiral. In case Conquerors can't figure it out, it can be armed with defensive defenses, and the others can be used, but they have to be able to do it. He added Conquerors all the time before, because he was too lazy. Now that I am an Admiral, I have to perform 1 or 2 tasks no matter what, and other skills have to be arranged a little bit. What's more, Armament Haki can perform super defense and attack, seeing and hearing color can capture movement, as for physical swordsmanship and the like, it can let himself see through other people's movements a little bit. In this way, his Conquerors can be more handy. Naturally, I don't have to laboriously. 1 point for armed color, 1 point for seeing and hearing color, 1 point for body art, 1 point for swordsmanship, just right, the remaining 196 points are all added to Conquerors. Add some success. After confirming the choice in the system, Xia Xing's body quickly awakened and mastered all the abilities of the armed Haki, seeing and hearing color, physique, swordsmanship and so on. Among them, all the techniques of armed color, hardening, entanglement, external release, internal destruction, are all available, all in place in one breath. Unlike Conqueror's Haki, seeing and hearing S*X, armed S*X can take the initiative to practice. Of course, armament Haki would be very hard to practice normally, so how could Shanyu cultivate by himself? It can be enhanced by signing in every day. How can a serious person take the initiative to practice? Hey, wait, the armed color can also be covered on Conquerors. It's a bit new. After signing in and gaining the ability, Sha Shing stood and tried it curiously, and walked towards the fortress with muttering. Some marine soldiers on guard watched Sha Shing walking away in a daze, a little confused. This seaman stood still for a long time, and turned on for a while. What did armament Haki do? Sha Shing walked all the way into the fortress. As soon as she entered, someone led to the upper floor and walked over, and went directly to the marshal's office. Knocked on the door and opened the door. Sha Shing saw the 6 people sitting inside at a glance. Garp, Ms. He looked at Sha Shing in a t-shirt curiously. Sonda will look at Sha Shing more closely. Marshal Sengoku, Garp Vice Admiral, Ms. Crane. In addition to Sengoku, Sha Shing also saw Garp and Ms. Crane at a glance, both of whom are Marines mainstays, high level. Sha Shing still paid a military salute very seriously. Asterisk. Chapter 4. This Conquerors is too fierce. Advertisement. Xia Xing's serious salute in Akainu Sakazuki's eyes, Sha Shing appeared to be very ridiculous, and the salute was not standard enough, so she couldn't help but snorted coldly. Sha Shing, these are the 3 incumbents Admiral, Akainu Sakazuki, Kizaru Pelusalino, and Aokiji Kuzan. Sengoku coughed slightly and said immediately. This guy doesn't know that these 3 Admiral are not surprised. Akainu, Kizaru, Aokiji 3 Admiral have heard of it. Hello, I am the 4th Admiral in the future. Sha Shing nodded to the 3 of them and greeted them casually. His eyes quickly turned to the chair and began to move over. Why is this silly standing, right? Sakazuki was very annoyed by the appearance that he was about to be promoted to Admiral. This guy really thought it was that simple to become Admiral. Aokiji Kuzan has no expression, a look of helplessness. Kizaru Pelusalino looked at it indifferently. Ha ha ha, your kid is interesting. Garp laughed, looked at Sha Shing and walked to the chair by himself. Just like this, how do you go to be Admiral? Follow me to the practice ground and let you see what Admiral's combat power is. Sakazuki's first sentence was addressed to Sengoku, and he turned to Sha Shing as soon as he slapped the table. Marshal Sengoku has not had time to speak. I have to go to the rehearsal ground to fight. It's too much trouble, just here. Sha Shing just pulled the chair away, shook her head and said. At the very beginning, I had my own people asking for trouble, but I have agreed to Sengoku. For the sake of pineapple pie, let's show my strength. Immediately afterwards, Conqueror's Haki burst out in an invisible terror. Everyone's expressions changed drastically, but Sha Shing hadn't expected that Sha Shing would shoot directly, but there was no response yet. Sakazuki's eyes changed drastically. Although his body had begun to become elemental, he was instantly knocked out by the invisible Conqueror's Haki. Bang! A big hole was knocked out of the window, and Sakazuki fell directly into the square, smashing a hole. The 5 people were stunned, and this Sha Shing shot Sakazuki directly. Like what Sengoku said, it is indeed an exaggerated and terrifying Conqueror's Haki. This kind of power and control strength is indeed top-notch. No, it's not right, Conqueror's Haki is a deterrent force. Even if you reach the top, you won't just knock Sakazuki Logia's body out like this. Kizaru Pelusolino opened his mouth wide and said in surprise. In addition to the elements of mutual restraint, armament Haki, sea stone, it is impossible to attack Sakazuki's already elemental body. Aokiji, Sengoku, Garp, and Ms. Crane reacted with surprise on their faces. Sha Xing's Conqueror's Haki is indeed a strong exaggeration, but how did Conqueror's Haki attack Sakazuki? It's actually very simple, only the Conqueror's Haki that burst out is covered with armament Haki. Garp narrowed his eyes and said with a smile. Sengoku really picked up the treasure this time. There is such strength unexpectedly. Although Conqueror's Haki can attack the substance, it is still intangible in nature. This is also possible. Kizaru couldn't help but said in astonishment. Advertisement. This is too far-fetched. Aokiji Kuzan and Ms. Crane were equally surprised. Marshal Sengoku's eyes flashed with an unexpectedly stunning look. Sha Shing has not demonstrated this ability before. It seems that he still has a hand, which is remarkable. This is the top technique used by Haki. Even the old man and Roger didn't fully learn it. The whole sea knew that they would use this technique. There is only one. Rocks that have been dead for decades. Garp's eyes burst out, staring at Sha Shing like a torch. Rocks. Kizaru, Aokiji and Ms. Crane all had their hearts jumped, and they couldn't help looking at Sha Shing in amazement. The entire sea is only capable of Haki that the Sea Overlord Rocks had. This guy can reach this level. I'm afraid it's not just the top Conqueror's Haki. Everyone finally understood why Marshal Sengoku wanted him Sha Shing to become the 4th Admiral. This guy is a monster on Haki. The old man's decision is wise, right? Marshal Sengoku smiled, as if he had known it before. At this time, the 4 of them had not yet come and responded, and the sound of lava bursting sounded in the square below the hole. Boy, since you've taken the shot, let's go down and fight, this fortress can't stand your torture. The expressions of Sengoku, Garp and others changed. This Logia fights against the terrifying Conqueror's Haki. This office is unbearable, and it is very likely to collapse directly. Ah, so troublesome, or forget it, hey, Sakazuki, don't fight anymore. Sha Shing stood in front of the hole, and said with a face afraid of trouble. I have to jump down and waste a lot of effort. While I'm not ready to shoot, just forget it. Akainu Sakazuki's expression was angry and serious. This summer's Conqueror's Haki is indeed very powerful and terrifying, and it also comes with armament Haki to knock him off. Akainu, who heard Sha Shing say forget it, was not convinced, and didn't think much about attacking Sha Shing on the fortress hole directly below. A lava fist as big as a person rushed towards Sha Shing directly with black smoke and flames. However, Akainu Sakazuki's fist hit an invisible wall when it was half the distance from Sha Shing, and exploded with a bang. Humph. Sakazuki's complexion was solemn, and his lava body flew away in the black smoke, facing Sha Shing with a more powerful lava fist. Sha Shing didn't move. In her lazy posture, a terrifying might erupted continuously from her body, forming an invisible defense in front and blocking Sakazuki's fist. The powerful and mighty lava burst open, punch after punch, G. Behind Sengoku, Garp and others, they were amazed. Sha Shing stood there. Her body did not move, and even conquerors on her body did not leak. Driven like an arm, Sakazuki's attacks were all blocked. They knew exactly how powerful Akainu's lava fist was. After being attacked by Akainu, Sha Shing also started to use Haki to fight back. The invisible conqueror's Haki was wrapped with armament Haki, and almost instantly he pressed towards Sakazuki. Sakazuki had already concentrated on launching observation Haki, and caught a little track. His hands were also covered with black armed color to block it, but he couldn't help but snorted. This conqueror's Haki is too fierce. Asterisk. Chapter 5. 3 Admirals Recognition, the 4th Admiral is born. Advertisement. Conqueror's Haki, which is close to 1,500 attribute points, plus the cover technique of armed colors, of course it is fierce. However, Sha Shing himself knows that he can only attack and defend. Want to defeat Akainu? Impossible, at least not at this stage. The huge movement attracted the Marines in the fortress and the Marines on Oak Square to rush out to watch. They saw that the Marshal's office on the top had broken a big hole, and Akainu's offensive looked astonished and broke into cold sweats. Why did Sakazuki Admiral attack the fortress? My god. It seems to be blocked by something. What's the situation? This is Admiral's combat power. Who is that young man standing in the fortress? He actually blocked Admiral's attack. The Marines screamed at the terrible power and noticed Sha Shing beside the fortress hole. At this time, seeing Akainu hitting red eyes more and more, he must use a more powerful lava giant punch. The entire fortress is already shaking. Marshal Sengoku screamed. Sakazuki, enough, are you trying to destroy the fortress? Sakazuki finally stopped his hand, his face still gloomy. But this match has to admit the strength of Sha Shing. Sha Shing still looked like a fool, standing still, even his expression did not change. After Akainu Sakazuki stopped, he jumped up too. He didn't speak yet, but looked at Kizaru who was beginning to shine. Porosalino. Both Sengoku and Garp were surprised, but Kizaru wanted to give it a try. The old man should try it too, it's a welcome gift for a new colleague. The look under Kizaru Pelusolino's toed glasses flashed an expression of interest, taking advantage of Sha Xing's absence. The whole body turned into a ball of light, which instantly solidified behind Sha Shing. With a yellow flash on his foot, he kicked Sha Xing's back. Bang! There was no huge explosion, only the huge impact force made the fortress tremble again. Everyone looked at it in surprise, but at Kizaru's speed, it was still blocked. Kizaru was also surprised. His shining leg was blocked by Sha Xing's haki just an inch away. The huge speed of light hasn't changed Sha Xing's body shape. Recommendation: I will pay you back. Sha Shing chuckled and said back. At this time, I am very satisfied with my Conqueror's haki. I don't need to move my body at all. You can mobilize haki's power with just a movement of your mind. It's not too easy to use. Saying to pay a gift is a gift, Sha Xing's eyes condensed. Conqueror's haki swept out. Kizaru Pelusolino beside him couldn't help but his expression changed. Even he felt the sensation of oppressing nerves. At this time, Sha Xing's Conqueror's haki was like a mountain topping, and instantly shrouded Kizaru's head, with great power. He clicked. The sunglasses he was wearing broke, revealing Kizaru's surprised eyes. Conqueror's haki dissipated at the touch, just crushing Kizaru's sunglasses. After a while, Kizaru smiled. Yo, Conqueror's haki is really powerful, you are welcome to join. Sha Shing Admiral. Quote. Sha Shing also smiled and turned to look at Aokiji. Would you like to finish the fight together? Ah, the result is obvious, I won't waste my energy anymore, you are welcome to join, Admiral. Aokiji scratched his head and said with a smile. Advertisement. What else is there to try? The Sha Shing Admiral level combat power is appropriate, and it is still based on Conqueror's haki combat power. There is only one red-haired Shanks on the sea, with Conqueror's haki as the most powerful. Now, Marine also has a strong Conqueror's haki. Sengoku thought so too. At this time, both Kizaru and Aokiji had accepted and welcomed the summer and couldn't help but smile. Boy, congratulations on becoming Admiral, old man, I am optimistic about you. Garp Vice Admiral sat in a chair beside him and laughed with a thumbs up. Ms. He also expressed welcome to join. But there was something else in my mind. Conqueror's haki, to a certain extent, is even more terrifying than Devil Fruit's ability. After all, this is the king's aptitude. So Sha Shing, what kind of king you want to be so bold, has already reached the top Conqueror's realm at a young age. I'm afraid Ms. He wouldn't think about this thoroughly, because even Sha Shing doesn't know it. If Sha Shing wants to answer, maybe she wants to be the king of salted fish. Everyone expressed their approval and welcomed Sha Shing to join. Although Akainu Sakazuki was still a little unconvinced, he also shook hands with Sha Shing. I admit that you have admiral strength, but Marine represents absolute justice on the sea. I hope your attitude can be changed. Sakazuki looked at Sha Shing seriously and said. Still can't get used to Sha Xing's playful look. Sha Shing nodded perfunctorily. Sakazuki's temper is like this, so let's talk more lazily. You think this is over, today's damage repair costs will be deducted from your salary. Marshal Sengoku said to Akainu and Sha Shing. Of course Akainu Sakazuki doesn't care about this, and Sha Shing doesn't care about money either, but Kizaru has a terrible look on his face. As soon as he turned his head, Marshal Sengoku laughed again. The matter of Sha Shing becoming admiral finally settled. Your admiral uniform and medal are all ready. Sengoku called a marine colonel and delivered the coat with admiral epaulets and the appointment letter with the medal to Sha Xing's hands. Sha Shing also put on the admiral coat directly, and everyone didn't mind breaking a hole in the office and returned to their seats. Your new home in Marineford is also ready. At that time, a grand 4th Admiral inauguration ceremony will be held to introduce you to the world to increase Marine's prestige and deterrence. Sengoku looked at Sha Shing and said slowly. Forget about the ceremony. It's too much trouble for me to go in the past, but I can prepare a little more for the new house and food, especially the pineapple pie. Sha Shing still had an expression of fear of trouble, and as she spoke, she became greedy when it came to pineapple pie. You are good with everything, but you are too lazy. Lazier than Kuzan and Pelusolino. Sengoku couldn't help shaking his head, a headache. Admiral in this session is so lazy. Aokiji Kuzan always sleeps late. Kizaru Pelusolino is even more lazy, staying at Mariajoy or naval headquarters all day. Just one Sakazuki looks like, diligent and conscientious. Ms. He closed her eyes and lowered her head, and Garp couldn't help laughing while drinking tea. Sha Shing touched her face embarrassedly. It is indeed too much trouble for so many people to run around. Since you don't want to, then forget about it, but as Admiral, now there is a particularly important task for you. Marshal Sengoku slowed down, an inexplicable smile flashed in his eyes. There will be no time to make you lazy. Sha Shing was immediately speechless. It's troublesome, it's really not that easy to become Admiral. The mission came just as soon as this coat was put on. Chapter 6. New mission. Trade ace with Blackbeard. Advertisement. Go to Banaro Island on the Grand Line, meet a Blackbeard pirate, and bring back the Firefist ace he captured. Marshal Sengoku solemnly said to Sha Shing. When everyone heard this, they were surprised. Isn't Blackbeard teach the guy who dared to kill his comrades in the Whitebeard pirates? Aokiji scratched his head and remembered this. Firefist ace is also the captain of the 2nd division of the Whitebeard pirates. Akainu also looked confused. This Blackbeard caught the Fire Fist. Ace also informed Marine what he was going to do. Sengoku, what happened? When Garp heard that Ace's name had changed, he couldn't help asking Sengoku. What happened to this guy Ace? Blackbeard Marshal D. Teach caught the Whitebeard Pirates 2nd Division Captain Firefist Ace on Banaro Island, and wanted to make a deal with our world government in exchange for Shichibukai's position. With that, Sengoku frowned. Ace. Garp's eyes widened, and sweat came out of his forehead. The world government has agreed to Blackbeard's deal. Xia Xing's mission is to go to Banaro Island to bring Ace Firefist back. Another point is that Blackbeard Teach seems to have some major secrets to tell us, and proposed 1 billion Baileys to make a price. Sha Shing has to bring 200 million yuan as a deposit to go there. Marshal Sengoku looked at Sha Shing and explained the matter again. Has the timeline developed to this point? The so-called shocking news of Blackbeard Teach is that Ace is the son of One Piece Roger, right? Sha Shing touched her cheek, yawned boredly, and thought to herself. I was too lazy to mix up and didn't want to do the tasks, but I became Admiral anyway, and I even got the appointment letter. It's not good if I didn't go for the first task, so I went to Banaro Island to sign. By the way, see this very conspiring hero Blackbeard Teach. Faced with the look in Sengoku's eyes, Sha Shing nodded, accepting the task. The next appointment process is relatively simple. Sengoku convened a large group of Vice Admiral who could come over, such as Momoshiki, T-Dolphin, Flying Squirrels and others. At the same time, they also contacted all Marineford Marine and Marine channels through broadcasting to the distribution of the world, and announced the appointment of the 4th Admiral together. Admiral White Lion, Sha Shing, Momoshiki and others in the alternate Admiral were all covered, and they all had a headache. When will Admiral alternate? The T-Dolphin was a little bit sullen. Sha Shing, a recruit, was on Admiral. Although he had nothing to say, the ferocious Conqueror's Haki that day hit him with a shadow in his heart now, but it was too soon, right? The remaining Vice Admiral, Rear Admiral and other Marines were stunned and even appointed the 4th Admiral. Afterwards, the White Lion Sha Shing incident was picked up, and the recruiter's Conqueror's Haki broke out. Even the alternate Admiral T-Dolphin was suppressed and fainted. There was also a short battle that took place in the fortress not long ago. Many Marines know and understand that this Sha Shing is a powerful existence that can compete with a Kainu Admiral, with a proper Admiral level. Moreover, the grade is still very young, only 18 or 19 years old. Marine added a member of Admiral, and the soldiers cheered after being surprised. After all, after the Marshal and others, as well as the guy identified by Mariajoy, that is a proper powerhouse. For Marine, this is a proper one. The great thing about Sha Shing, the reputation of Sha Shing spread quickly, and it was completely scattered in the sea after just a few hours through branches all over the world. Advertisement. Marineford was in a good mood, and Sha Shing was led to the town of Marineford in the admiration of the Marine warrior's eyes, her new home in Admiral, a luxurious villa. There are really a lot of drinks, food, and the most is the piece of pineapple pie. Sha Shing, who was originally intrigued, instantly became energetic, and the Vice Admiral who had not come to congratulate them had a great meal together. As for the time to go to Banaro Island before departure, the warship is also preparing. And just when Sha Shing is enjoying it, the head of the G5 base, Vigor, received the news that the 4th Admiral took office, and for the first time contacted his real boss, Doflamingo. 4th Admiral, Guiju was just appointed. On the phone, Doflamingo's voice revealed a strong surprise. At this time, such an incident happened. What are Marine and world government doing? Yes, Master, this matter is true, and there is nothing wrong with telling all Marine about it. Vigor, Doflamingo's undercover ghost Bamboo nodded affirmatively, and said solemnly. This is not a trivial matter, it is enough to affect the balance of forces on the sea. After all, Admiral, known as the highest combat power at sea, can't be taken carelessly. It's really interesting. It seems that the sea might not be calm anymore. Doflamingo hung up the phone with an inexplicable smile. Compared to the undercover at the Marine Vice Admiral level, Doflamingo knew about it the first time. It was much later in the ears of other pirates. A turbulent sea of New World, like a huge pirate ship with a huge whale leaning over the sea, the pirate flag with the Whitebeard skull flying on the mast. Marine's new 4th Admiral, White Lion Sha Shing. Marco took the photo in his hand and looked at the introduction below, and his eyes widened. By his side, Beasta and other team captains surrounded Marco and Whitebeard, who was also surprised. It looks very young, old man. Marco handed a photo of Sha Shing, which looked like a teenager and looked very young. Whitebeard twisted Gates' hand holding the hip flask and couldn't help but stop, and looked at Sha Shing in the photo. Admiral is not a place where you can sit casually. It seems that Sengoku has dug a treasure. It's really scary for the next generation, oh. Twist Getter laughed loudly, but there was an unspeakable mood in his heart. There seemed to be some bad premonition, and he couldn't help but remember what the redhead Shanks said last time. Ace has been out alone for some time. Marco also feels that Marine's edition of Admiral is definitely not easy. This guy looks young, or even a little too small, with a lazy look, but he can become an Admiral. The strength is definitely very strong. Marine was newly appointed as the Admiral White Lion, but at this time it caused a wave of thoughts on the mobile. Asterisk. Chapter 7. The 4th Admiral official announcement, shake the world. Advertisement. Wanokuni, Ghost Island. Built in a castle built in a huge skull, Kaido drank wine gruntingly, looking at a briefing in his hand with a ferocious face. The three plagues Jack, Jin, and Quinn were all present, and their expressions were a little unexpected. Marine's new Admiral White Lion. Is it such a nasty kid? Kaido sneered disapprovingly. Jack and Quinn both laughed, and Jin looked at Kaido blankly. The governor, being able to become Marine Admiral shows that this guy still has a little ability, and now Marine is newly appointed as Admiral. What does it mean? Jin was not as brainless as Jack, and said to Kaido. Kaido didn't respond much to Jin's words, and instead laughed away. Fourth Admiral, can he grant me a death? I have to go to Naval Headquarters again for some advice. Kaido smiled arrogantly, his eyes narrowed slightly. Jin also had a headache for Kaido's behavior. If Kaido-sama flew to Naval Headquarters, they wouldn't be able to stop it, and they didn't even know. Although Kaido can't kill the strongest creature, who knows how strong this admiral is and whether Marine has the ability to completely trap Kaido-sama. At the same time, in another piece of sea in Wanokuni, Kaido base camp. The red-haired Shanks and the group of people sailing on the sea also received a message from Naval Headquarters. A group of people including Ben Beckman, Usopp, etc. surrounded Shanks and looked at Sha Shing in the briefing. White Lion Sha Shing, Marine has another strongman. Redhead Shanks said solemnly. The surrounding partners also looked different, some were as solemn as Shanks, some were unexpectedly curious, some were extremely surprised, everyone understood. In Marine, the position of Admiral is extremely important. What is the ability of this young guy to turn the traditional 3-da into a 4-position Admiral? It's in the castle on New World Cake Island. BIGMOM Charlotte Linlin saw that Marine had added Admiral, and was angrily at his children. Admiral White Lion, look at you, this little guy has become Marine Admiral. Charlotte Linlin shouted angrily. The reason for not being in a good mood is more because he hasn't eaten the dessert he wanted. In addition, the opponent Marine has even added an admiral that is so young. Kata Curry and others lowered their heads, did not refute, and listened to Mom's teachings honestly. 4 emperors, Shichibukai, etc. have all learned about Marine White Lion Admiral one after another. People at Straw Hat Crew who are still in the 7 capitals of waters all saw Sha Shing in the newspapers. This guy is so powerful, he looks as big as Luffy's brother, Fire Fist Ace, and he has already become a Marine Admiral. Nami covered her mouth and said in surprise. Luffy, Robin, Sanji, Zoro and others are no strangers to Admiral, thinking of how powerful and terrifying Aokiji is, this person is so young and has such a powerful strength. Marine's new Admiral has caused shocks all over the world, whether it is the pirates sailing on the Grand Line, the major kingdoms, and even the remote islands. And Sha Shing, who has attracted the attention of the whole world these days, is sailing on the sea on a warship, heading for Banaro Island. Sha Shing was very happy after completing his appointment on the same day and returning to his new home to eat special food, but set off the next day with the warship ready. Admiral, Momoshiki, and a group of marine warriors also accompanied him. I originally thought that the new Admiral White Lion Sha Shing would be a tough, motivated young man. After all, he was selected at this age, and even Momoshiki, who made an exception to become the 4th Admiral, was speechless these days. Advertisement. This guy was really recognized by Marshal Sengoku and Garp, and Granny Crane nodded, didn't he walk through the back door? Momoshiki Gion looked at Sha Shing who was lazily lying on the bow and eating pineapple pie with the sea breeze. Sha Shing just let his subordinates directly carry him and walk. The most thing Admiral has said in a few days is forget it, it's too troublesome, even if you encounter a pirate. Forget it, it's too much trouble, I have to chase for a long time. Momoshiki Gion remembers Sha Xing's reaction at that time. Slacker Admiral, Banaro Island is coming. Momoshiki walked over in angrily, and said to Sha Shing. Huh, it's finally here. Sha Shing swallowed the food in her mouth, but her body remained motionless, still lying halfway, enjoying herself. Together, Gion, sea breeze and pineapple pie are a perfect match. Sha Shing picked up a piece and handed it to Momoshiki, looking at her glamorous figure. But there was an expression of helplessness and annoyance on Momoshiki's face. These Admiral are lazier than the other, Aokiji, Kizaru, and now this White Lion is even more lazy, and it's a fool. Banaro Island is ahead, and it will be there soon. Momoshiki pointed his finger to the bow, and the expression on his face became more and more unbearable and annoyed. Get up now, get up now. Sha Shing was also a little embarrassed. After all, he was here to complete the task. He made a haha at Momoshiki's expression, stood up lazily, and looked forward to the bow. An extremely small black spot appeared in sight. At this time, among the Blackbeard gang waiting on Banaro Island, the sniper Van Oka stood high and first spotted a warship traveling extremely far and fast. Captain, Marine is here. Van Oka yelled. Below, Blackbeard, Badgers, Poison Q, Lafayette and others stared at the seaside. Beside them is Seastone's dying Fire Fist, Boskart D. Ace. It's finally here, Marine. Blackbeard Teach chuckled. Badgers and the others took Ace closer to the beach, staring at the approaching warship. Now Teach is very confident in his own strength, and even a little arrogant after defeating Ace. The Badgers, Van Oka and others all stood apart a little bit, ready to fight. After all, even Marine could go back and kill them all at once. Huo Fist Ace knew Blackbeard's plan, and his eyes closed while looking at the approaching warship with regret in his heart. In sight, both sides looked at each other more and more clearly. Blackbeard Teach, Van Oka and others can clearly see Sha Shing and Momoshiki Vice Admiral standing in the bow of the ship. Unexpectedly, the person sent by Marine turned out to be the 4th Admiral, the White Lion Sha Shing, who has been rumored at sea these days. Blackbeard Teach also secretly breathed a sigh of relief and said with a smile. Asterisk. Chapter 8. Conquerors crushes the Blackbeard gang. Advertisement. Chapter 8. Blackbeard Teach didn't mean to put Sha Shing and Momoshiki Gion in his eyes. As the warship approached, Sha Shing also saw Blackbeard, Marshal Teach on the shore. He was a bit fat and bloated, with a black coat draped over his body, revealing the body hair on his chest. With a disdainful smile, looking at Sha Shing on the warship, his eyes kept looking at Momosuke Gion. This is the ambitious Blackbeard Teach. Sha Shing stood there, leaning against the ship rail. There is nothing special about this Blackbeard, so let's check in first. Sha Shing, with its own salted fish attributes, directly ignored Blackbeard's eyes and initiated a sign in command to the system in his mind. Successfully signed into Banaro Island and got the attribute value of 50. The crisp sound of the system sounded. Sign in at this kind of place, the value obtained is relatively small. Of course, I don't care how many Sha Shing sign-ins are completed, and a small amount of values are directly added to Conqueror's Haki. At this time, the warship was also docked on the shore. Sha Shing stood at the bow of the ship because she wanted to be very salty, but was pushed by Momosuke Gion and reluctantly got off the ship. Seeing Sha Shing and Momosuke Gion walk down with a bunch of Marines behind them, Blackbeard Teach didn't feel jealous at all, but looked at Sha Shing arrogantly. Momosuke also carried a suitcase in his hand, which was obviously the deposit for the transaction. Fan Oka, Badges and others are not as arrogant as Blackbeard. Their eyes solemnly look at the white lions Sha Shing and Momosuke, subconsciously feeling that Sha Xing's body hides a terrible feeling like a scourge. Can't help being very dignified in my heart. It was the newly appointed White Lion Admiral who came here in person. What the yellow-haired boy. The Blackbeard Teach thief ha 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 watched Sha Shing arrogantly and brought Momosuke and the gang of marine fighters over, and his words were even provocative. Momosuke and the people behind Marine both changed their complexions, but Sha Shing directly waved his hands lazily without paying attention. Ace. Sha Shing murmured, ignoring Blackbeard who was laughing arrogantly after missing a tooth, and looked at Ace who was dying and unable to move. Ace's eyes closed and looked at Sha Shing who came by. Marine Admiral. Kill me. Being captured by the traitor Teach and even handed over to the world government as a bargaining chip, Ace has an indescribable shame in his heart. Instead of being captured here and letting Blackbeard Teach complete his plan, it is better to be killed and not to shame Daddy Whitebeard. At this time, Ace only had this thought in his mind, and he looked at Sha Shing with pleading eyes. I can't tell you this. Sha Shing spread her hands and said. When he came up, he let himself kill him, so he wouldn't do this kind of trouble. According to the deal, we are going to take Huaquan Ace away. Momosuke stepped forward with no expression on his face, and was about to take away Ace, who was struggling weakly on the ground. At this time, Blackbeard Teach chuckled and the Devil Sheriff Lafayette immediately stepped forward to block in front of Momosuke. According to the agreement, it is indeed possible to take away Firefist Ace, but what about the deposit we want? Advertisement. Momosuke glanced at the notorious guy, and passed the box he was holding. This is a deposit of 200 million Baileys. Momosuke took the box and threw it over, and then he was going to move forward. Wait a minute, I changed my mind and took away Huaquan Ace and the information. I want to add 1 billion Baileys as a deposit. This information has a deep connection with Captain Ace. You also have this information, Marine. It's definitely worth it. Blackbeard Teach narrowed his eyes and said with a treacherous smile. You dare to be so shameless. Momosuke looked at Teach, who had changed his mind without hesitation on the spot, and his expression became annoyed, and his right hand immediately reached up to the hilt of the knife on his body. The Marines behind them also saw Momosuke's movements and Blackbeard Teach's arrogance, and they became vigilant. And Blackbeard Teach was not afraid, and black mist began to appear on his body. Van Oka even pointed his gun directly at Momosuke's head behind him. Now I have the most terrifying power in the world, that is, Father Whitebeard. Now I dare to do it. There is a 4th Admiral and alternate Admiral. You still honestly send Bailey over. Blackbeard Teach laughed arrogantly, the arrogance in his expression. The speechless color on Sha Xing's face. What is the brain of this Blackbeard Teach? Is he doing this with Whitebeard? The atmosphere immediately became tense at this moment. Momosuke's fiery temper immediately pulled out the long knife, and the armament Haki on his body began to cover up. Badgers, Lafayette, Poison Q, and others of the Blackbeard Pirates group, with a slight smile, directly put on a fighting posture, eager to try. And the expression on their faces didn't change much, they obviously planned to do it from the beginning. Suddenly, behind Momosuke, a powerful Conqueror's Haki radiated directly, and the terrifying deterrent force made the air tremble. Momosuke looked back at Sha Shing who had exploded with Haki. At this moment, Sha Shing was completely human-like. The powerful and invisible Conquerors was pressing directly towards the Blackbeard group, and even the ground under his feet was lifted up, gravel and trees were all impacted. For an instant, Badgers, Lafayette and others were taken over by tremendous mental pressure. The world in their eyes was only Sha Xing's eyes bursting with Conqueror's Haki. They persisted for less than 3 seconds, and they bothered by Akugan and fainted. It fell to the ground, and then rolled backwards by the impact. Although Blackbeard Teach did not faint, at this moment the black mist on his body was directly dissipated by the impact of Conqueror's Haki. The body was directly knocked out by the huge momentum, and a mouthful of blood was spit out. After suffering a serious injury, his expression was extremely frightened for an instant, and the eyes that looked at Sha Shing were full of shock. This is Conquerors. Teach is stunned. In Marine, besides Sengoku Garp, there is actually a Master Conquerors. And this Conquerors directly suppressed Dark Fruit's ability, the whole body was suppressed weakly, Haki penetrated his body and directly injured himself seriously. At this level, even the red hair who is very good at conquerors may not be comparable to it. What kind of monster is this white lion? Haki took it back, Sha Shing still standing in place, listlessly. Momosuke Gion and the many marines behind him were completely stunned. Is this the strength of the 4th Admiral White Lion? I can beat this Blackbeard teach without any hands. Everyone couldn't help being shocked. Asterisk. Chapter 9. Blackbeard is terrified. Advertisement. Fire Fist Ace was tied to the ground and felt Sha Xing's huge and terrifying Conqueror's Haki. His eyes were shocked and he looked at Sha Shing, which was about the same size as himself. White Lion Sha Xing's Conqueror's Haki is actually even stronger than Whitebeard's Conqueror's. And a Blackbeard teach is so powerful that it can't even resist. Momosuke Gion and marine soldiers couldn't help swallowing their throats. Fire Fist Ace, the captain of Whitebeard's 2nd division, is strong enough. He refused the recruitment of Shichibukai before. Now he was severely injured and tied to the ground by Blackbeard, all in embarrassment. And Blackbeard teach is now unable to resist even Sha Xing's Conqueror's Haki, and the other members of the Blackbeard pirate group are directly fainted. The White Lion Sha Shing, before releasing Conqueror's Haki back and forth for more than 5 seconds, understatement, he knocked down the arrogant Blackbeard. White Lion Admiral. The marine warriors all looked at Sha Shing with shocked eyes, feeling a little excited inside. 4th Admiral is really powerful and unimaginable. No wonder the Marshal and Marineford were directly promoted to Admiral. Momosuke Gion's pair of beautiful eyes was equally astonished. Even Blackbeard teach directly suppressed serious injuries. How strong is this kind of Conqueror's Haki that can cause substantial attacks? Sha Shing watched the fall not far, bleeding from the corners of her mouth, and Blackbeard teach with horror in her eyes. Do you want to add pounds? I can add pounds too. The tone was lazy, which seemed to be a very common sentence, but it made Blackbeard teach's eyes dilated and felt a huge sense of pressure and threat in his heart. No. No, Admiral White Lion. I don't even need the money. Huaquan Ace, take it away. Blackbeard teach now feels that Sha Shing is a fierce ancient lion, and a strong fear has developed in his heart. The White Lion is invincible. After reacting, he immediately waved his hands on the ground and said anxiously. Sha Shing walked to the side of Momosuke, very close to Momosuke's side, her eyes still staring at Blackbeard teach indifferently. Yes, there is also information. Fire Fist Boskart D. Ace is actually the bloodline of Gul D. Roger back then. My own son. This is known on the ship of Daddy Whitebeard. Blackbeard was afraid of speaking slowly. Sha Shing was caught off guard and spoke very quickly. What? Say it again. Momosuke and a group of marine fighters were startled again, and their mouths opened wide. Ace, the son of Roger, One Piece, his blood. Blackbeard pointed to his pupils shaking and lying on the ground, Ace said again. Everyone at Marine couldn't help making an uproar, and the eyes that looked at Ace were full of weirdness. The blood of One Piece has survived to the present. What is even more incredible is that Fire Fist Ace served as the captain of the 2nd Division on Whitebeard's Twistgate's ship. No wonder you dare to directly ask for 1 billion Baileys. Momosuke Gion suddenly realized what information he had thought about before and offered a price of 1 billion yuan. Now he finally understands. Indeed, amazing enough. The shoulders couldn't help pushing Sha Shing, who was leaning lazily, and looked over. Advertisement. There was no surprise in Sha Xing's eyes or expression, as if she had known it a long time ago, and she seemed particularly calm. Momosuke couldn't help but stared for a moment, then nodded secretly in his heart. Sure enough, a strong person is calm and calm. Even this kind of amazing information can't make him feel the slightest emotional fluctuation. Also, having such a terrifying Conqueror's Haki shows that the White Lion's spirit is extremely magnificent. Things are not enough to shake. Momosuke naturally knows that the growth of Conqueror's Haki is through the growth of the owner's own courage, which can be deduced from Sha Xing's Haki. After hearing the news, the other Marines also saw the indifferent Sha Shing in amazement, and couldn't help but admire it secretly. Although Sha Shing is young, she really has nothing to say about her strength, and she has such a stable state of mind. Okay, the matter is resolved, let's go back. Sha Shing knew that Blackbeard teach didn't have any powerful intelligence anymore, and waved to the crowd to take all the people like Blackbeard teach, and return to Marineford first. By the way, pull up teach and go back. Marineford accepts Shichibukai's appointment, so as not to make any trouble for himself. After the mission was completed, Sha Shing just wanted to go back to her salted fish den. After speaking, she patted Momosuke Gion, jumped onto the warship and lay down, stretched out comfortably. Momosuke and many Marines have a black line on their faces. This White Lion, Admiral, is really like a lion, and he lay down when he was done. Lazy lion, Momosuke Gion murmured, and then asked the Marine soldiers to carry the unconscious Blackbeard group and the seriously injured Teach onto the warship to return to Marineford. On the warship, Momosuke didn't lock Blackbeard Teach and others, and threw it on the deck at random without taking care of it. The Marine soldiers also took care of themselves, and no one went to take care of the Blackbeard pirates. There is a White Lion Sha Shing blowing the sea breeze on the bow of the ship. Forgive these guys for not daring to make trouble. When the warship reached halfway, Lafayette, Badgers, Poison Q, Van Oka and others also woke up one after another. They are even a little confused. Captain. Van Oka looked at the ship and the Marines ignored them, and couldn't help but whisper to Blackbeard Teach. They only remembered that Conqueror's Haki from Admiral, the White Lion, smashed directly over, and fainted when his head shook. They didn't know anything. They wanted to know what happened behind Captain Blackbeard and Marine. This time I really planted. That Conqueror's Haki is obviously at the top level. Teach didn't dare to make a loud voice. A group of people gathered on the deck and pointed slightly at Sha Shing, who was eating on a recliner in the bow of the ship. Badges and the others all had a little horror in their eyes. Conqueror's Haki knows it, but as for the class of conquerors, I don't know it, but there is no doubt that the top level means that you have reached the most powerful level. Although I didn't faint when I was shrouded, it was worse than you fainted. I was already seriously injured and fell to the ground. This guy is an ancient ferocious beast. Blackbeard said with lingering fear. Badges and others couldn't help showing shock. Never thought that this young 4th Admiral would have such a terrifying and powerful strength. Without having to shoot, the direct momentum crushed them. This time I really fell. Fortunately, I now take them back to give them the title of Shichibukai. Blackbeard Teach also secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Although he didn't get the money, he didn't lose the most important Shichibukai position. The plan is still on track. Asterisk. Chapter 10. Escort Ace to the 6th floor. Advertisement. The warship sailed all the way and returned to Marineford a few days later. The Blackbeard Teach group has been on the boat without any attention, it seems transparent, and there are still some delicious food and drink, but the pressure next to Sha Shing is too much. Now in Marineford, a group of people set foot on naval headquarters can't help but breathe a sigh of relief on the Crescent Bay. Naval headquarters had already contacted Sha Shing and others when they returned. At this time, 2 Vice Admiral saluted Sha Shing and took away the rest of Blackbeard Teach and the Tide Ace. As soon as Sha Shing arrived at Marineford, she wanted to go back to her residence and let Momoshiki take Blackbeard to complete the task with Sengoku. In the end, Momoshiki was dragged by Momoshiki to the fortress to report. In the fortress, the marshal's office. Sengoku, who knew that Sha Shing had returned, also summoned Garp, Ms. Crane, and Akainu. Aokiji, Kizaru 3 Da Will. Gion came to the office with the carefree Sha Shing and Blackbeard, and everyone smiled. The first mission, Sha Shing, was completed very well. Haki directly suppressed Blackbeard Teach, and even saved a huge amount of money. As for intelligence, it was not said on the phone. After all, there is a possibility of being monitored. So, Momoshiki Gion began to elaborate on the before and after the mission and the intelligence of Blackbeard's price of 1 billion. What? When Sengoku heard that Fire Fist Ace was the son of One Piece Roger, he quickly stood up, surprised with a look on his face. This thing is real, Blackbeard Teach said seriously and explained that everyone on the Whitebeard ship knew this. Teach in this meeting is totally afraid to make trouble with so many seniors at Marine. Everyone had to believe the truth of this matter. Akainu, Aokiji, and Kizaru also looked at Garp unexpectedly. Ace and Garp are related. Everyone knows this, but no one doubts Garp is Roger's opponent. The people who have been looking for so long and investigating for so long are actually under our noses. Sengoku gritted his teeth and looked at Garp, who was extremely ugly. Marine of course still needs to investigate, but based on Blackbeard's performance, there is a high probability that this matter is true. Garp clenched his fists hard, and finally sighed deeply. This was the path Ace chose. Garp's performance also confirmed the authenticity of the news. At this time, everyone in the office was shocked by the news. Sha Shing leaned back on the sofa lazily, looking at the 6 people with different looks, a little boring. For the next thing, I don't want to get involved. At most, I would fish with Kizaru and others during the public execution. Unexpectedly, Boscate D Ace has such a source. This is completely the blood of the devil. The others didn't talk about Garp, but Sakazuki said unexpectedly, not forgetting to glance at Garp. Fire Fist Ace is not only the captain of Whitebeard's 2nd Division team, but also involves One Piece, which is completely intolerable when it falls into the hands of the world government. And Sengoku thought with serious eyes, and patted the table one last time. Fire Fist Ace, I decided to execute the sentence publicly. Sengoku said in a very solemn tone, and looked at the Crane staff with questions in his eyes. Public execution is indeed of great significance, but it will be subject to a strong counterattack from the Whitebeard pirates. We must be fully prepared. Advertisement. Ms. Crane made it through at one point, understood what Sengoku meant, and said with a groan. The son of One Piece Roger, the current public execution of the big pirate does have unimaginable far-reaching significance to the world. For this, the Crane staff supports Sengoku. No, I am opposed to public execution, Sengoku. Do you have to do this? You know that the old twist-getter will come over to fight us at all costs. Garp looked gloomy. He didn't want Ace to be tried in full view, nor did he want to fight Whitebeard, who is known as the strongest man. Yes, Mr. Sengoku, should this matter be carefully reconsidered. Aokiji also feels that the public execution of Ace is too sloppy. Is the impact of fighting with the uncrowned King Whitebeard on the front on the Marine too much? There are different Shichibukai, and countless fierce pirates. Such pirates should be publicly executed, let the whole world see and know the majesty of our Marine. Akainu Sakazuki supported Sengoku's approach and spoke. Neither Sha Shing nor Kizaru spoke. Momoshiki was also standing behind Vice Admiral, watching the disputes between the two sides quietly, while Blackbeard stood with a silly smile. Since we have disagreements, we can only discuss with Mariajoy first, and Impel Huaquan Ace into Impel Down. Marshal Sengoku rubbed his brows with a headache. The old guy Garp is getting into trouble again, but Ace's affairs are indeed a bit messy for Garp. Sha Shing naturally knows that public execution is an inevitable historical event, and there is no interest in listening to them. At this time, she can only sit on the sofa and wait for get off work. In case of accident, I will personally escort Ace Huaquan to Impel Down imprisonment. At this time, Akainu Sakazuki volunteered to stand up. In any case, the smooth execution of the Devil's Son must be guaranteed. No, Sakazuki, the old man himself escorted Ace to go. Garp's eyes condensed, and Haki was looking at Sakazuki in his eyes. Garp, who is usually nervous and doesn't care about everything, showed such a look, which made Sakazuki stunned. At this time, Sengoku sighed. Since it was brought back by the White Lion, let him send it another ride. Akainu may be bad, Garp's current state may also be confused, so balance it and let Sha Shing escort it to Impel Down. Marshal Sengoku, I just came back now, forget it. Sha Shing didn't bother to go, and said with a bitter expression on her face, making Momosuke couldn't help but smile. Let Sha Shing be escorted, Akainu and Garp also accepted that they did not speak anymore. Come on, go and prepare the best pineapple pie for the White Lion Admiral to enjoy. Sengoku rolled his eyes and looked at Sha Shing with a smile, as if he was saying, you can eat it as soon as you go. Then I will go there. There is pineapple pie, which is the best. Sha Shing coughed slightly, stood up lazily and left. Impel Down is actually quite close, a little bit closer than the recruit training camp, so you can sign a road by the way. Asterisk. Chapter 11. Conquerors increased to 1700 points. Advertisement. Blackbeard heard that he was going to Impel Down, his eyes flashed, and he immediately spoke to Sengoku. Impel Down underwater prison, known as the Bronze Wall and Iron Wall, I can follow the White Lion Admiral in and take a look. Sengoku, Suru's staff, Garp and others heard Blackbeard's request and were startled. After thinking for a while, Sengoku nodded. It's not impossible to enter Impel Down, but you can only follow the White Lion Admiral, or you will be arrested directly. Sengoku looked at Blackbeard Teach and said solemnly. Teach is now considered Shichibukai, so this request is not excessive, and he has absolute confidence in the great underwater prison. With Blackbeard's ability, he can't resist the Warden Magellan, not to mention Sha Shing is present. Sha Shing also took a look at Teach. This guy is going to find the way, but it doesn't matter how he makes trouble, just be his own salted fish. Blackbeard Teach was also a little frustrated in his request, after all, the fear of Sha Shing was still lingering in my heart. But this opportunity is very rare, just becoming Shichibukai, this kind of request is not a big problem for Marine. In case Sengoku disagrees or the White Lion Sha Shing has spoken, I don't dare to say to go in together. Fortunately, Marshal Sengoku agrees. Sha Shing, a lazy guy, doesn't care about him either. So Sha Shing took Blackbeard, and by the way, Momosuke, a big beauty. If you don't bring a follower to do things, you just follow along. I went to pick up Ace who had already received treatment. At this time, Ace had also untied the chains and replaced them with handcuffs and ankle chains, and recovered his body. Looking at Sha Shing and Momosuke who were escorting him, his eyes changed. At this moment, Ace, who has recovered a little physical strength, has become more sensitive, and the aura of this White Lion Sha Shing has become even more powerful. What kind of monster is this guy? His age is so powerful. From naval headquarters to Impel Down quickly, under the triangular ocean current of the exclusive world government, the warship quickly entered the gate of justice and saw the circular Impel Down. The newly appointed 4th Admiral White Lion personally escorted the prisoner over. Magellan and Hannibal and other Impel Down chiefs all walked up to the ground floor and waited. Until the warship landed, Momosuke took Sha Shing to escort Ace down, and at the same time Blackbeard Teach followed in the back door like a good baby, watching quietly. Impel Down is known as a copper wall and an iron wall. For sin and pirates, this is hell. It is true that Sha Shing, Momosuke, and Blackbeard all felt the cold air coming out of it. At this time, Magellan, Hannibal and others were surprised in their hearts and stepped forward to salute Sha Shing. White Lion Admiral is indeed so young, especially Magellan can obviously perceive a powerful force hidden in Sha Xing's body. Welcome to the White Lion Admiral, it's hard work. I'm the warden, deputy, just call me Hannibal. Before Magellan spoke, Hannibal was the first to speak like a boss. Seeing that attitude, he still wanted to shoot Sha Xing's flattery. As a result, Magellan pushed Hannibal's cheek away. White Lion Admiral, I am the warden of this Impel Down prison, and you need to send the prisoner personally. Magellan said seriously to Sha Shing. This Firefist Ace is a special prisoner, and must be escorted in by the warden and the escort marine to ensure nothing is lost. Sha Shing, who just wanted to wave his hand to Magellan, was taken aback. Well, it has to be sent down, which is really troublesome. And Blackbeard Teach was secretly delighted that it would be best for the White Lion to send it down, so he could follow in and see clearly. Advertisement. Seeing that Sha Shing was unhappy, Momosuke gave an angry push, and Sha Shing began to lift his leg and walk forward. Magellan's group and marine escorted Ace up. At this time, in Sha Xing's mind, the system prompt sounded. Arrive at the new location, Impel Down the great undersea prison, do you sign in? When Sha Shing got here, she just wanted to shake her hand and slipped away. At this time, the sign-in was confirmed because of the reminder of the system. Sign in successfully, get attribute value 200. Oh, there are still 200 attribute points. It's really good, I have a chance to sign in next time. Sha Shing decisively added all 200 attribute points to Conqueror's. Conqueror's attribute points have reached 1007. Sha Shing can clearly feel that his Conqueror's has improved a lot. At the same time, they have come to the first floor of the sea where they have entered Impel Down. They need to use Baidu's boiling water to boil the prisoners for disinfection and baptism. The tough look on Ace's face did not change even his face inside, and he accepted the baptism of imprisonment without saying a word. Later, Sha Shing and Momosuke brought Ace and Blackbeard teach, who underwent a full-body examination, from Crimson Hell on the basement floor. The gloomy breath was mixed with all kinds of screams. Momosuke frowned throughout the whole process, and Sha Shing was still half dead and lazy. This is the first level of our Impel Down. The prisoners are only criminals who don't die, they are tortured every day. Magellan and Hannibal began to introduce them next to them, and the head jailers even showed an expression of enjoyment. Blackbeard teach saw drops of cold sweat on his forehead when he saw these scenes. Everyone continued to walk down and boarded the elevator. Moving on, under the introduction of Magellan and Hannibal layer by layer, Momosuke and others also understood. Sure enough, it was a hellish place, and Blackbeard teach couldn't help but tremble when he reached the 5th floor. Fortunately, I didn't come in recklessly. Teach only slammed in his heart, and following the White Lion Sha Shing to this Impel Down really gained a lot. At this time, the elevator reached the 6th floor. Here is the unknown 6th floor, Eternal Hell. The prisoners are all heinous criminals and some big pirates who are enough to cause an uproar in the world. Magellan introduced to Sha Shing seriously. Sha Xing's expression is still indifferent, he already knows all this. It was the curious look on Momosuke's face. After all, she had never been to this place before. On the contrary, the 6th floor was not as eerie and terrifying as the upper floors, and it seemed extremely silent. Everyone follow me. Magellan led the way, and Ace, who was escorted, walked in the middle of the crowd. Walking lazily, Sha Shing and Momosuke walked together, and Blackbeard teach showed an inexplicable smile at the end. Here is one of his target places. It's a pity that Blackbeard is not the time to do it. Once there is a change, the White Lion might be able to stare at him to death. Chapter 12. You remnants of the old era, a bit noisy. Advertisement. Sha Shing was too lazy to think, and followed Magellan ahead. The dim light can only see clearly in the aisle, and there are also cells on both sides. The people detained here are some well-known pirates or criminals at sea. This is the former Shichibukai Sand Crocodile. Passing a cell, Magellan slowed down and introduced to Sha Shing. Sha Shing looked at it, and a figure was faintly visible in the dark cell inside. Magellan, what do you mean? Crocodile's unhappy voice came out, and he himself was not close to the light source and could not see clearly in the dark. Magellan didn't answer Crocodile, but escorted Ace to a vacant cell not far away, and asked the jailer to open the door and send Ace in and torture him. During this period, Magellan once again pointed to one prison after another. This lap is all the famous guys at sea. The innermost one is the big pirate who stood side by side with the One Piece Roger and Whitebeard Twisting Gate decades ago. Lonely Red, Letterfield. Few people have heard of this name now, but Blackbeard knew this character, his eyes widened. It's him, the monster Red Earl. Momosuke couldn't help being taken aback. The Red Earl was sent by Mr. Garp and Marshal Sora to Impel Down. He had heard of it before. Sha Shing naturally knows Red Earl, and his expression has not changed. Magellan thought that Sha Shing might not have heard of this legendary character at a young age. Then they were introduced one by one. This is a descendant of the devil, Roger's crew, Bullet. This is the most ferocious female prisoner, Caitlin Diame. That huge cell holds the San Juan Hungry Wolf. That's a big wine barrel, Basque Chote. The Evil King, the Frozen World Destroyer, Burndi, Waldo. Under Magellan's introduction, all these famous prisoners were introduced. Momosuke was just terrified. The 6th level of Impel Down was really scary. Everyone going out here would cause unimaginable damage to the world. And Blackbeard teach smiled, excited in his heart. He wanted to find his strong partner in Impel Down, it was really the right choice. They were all strong enough to make the world government fearful. Sha Shing originally wanted to see the expressions of these guys with his own eyes, but these prisoners couldn't see their figures in the darkness of the cell, and immediately lost interest. Magellan, what are you doing here? You have introduced us all. At this moment, Caitlin caught her hands on the door rail of the prison door, revealing her figure. Not only Caitlin, but almost all the prisoners stood up and looked at Sha Shing, Magellan and others, and the 6th floor suddenly became noisy. Sha Shing looked at it curiously at this time, and it was really the same as the original One Piece. You criminal prisoners, open your eyes and take a good look. This is Marine's new 4th Admiral, the White Lion. Magellan was a little impatient when he heard the noise of these criminals. To be honest, Magellan hated these lawless criminals. After hearing Magellan's introduction, especially the name of the 4th Admiral, after a brief silence, everyone burst into laughter. 4th Admiral, such a yellow-haired kid. Advertisement. The Evil King laughed loudly. Yuji Shiryu, who was locked up by Magellan because of the murderer, also made a mocking sound. Is there no one available in world government? Let such a little doll be the position of Admiral. It is really mediocre. Marine was actually taken to Admiral's position by such a kid. What back door is this going through? Bullet snorted uncomfortably. How strong can he be at such a young age? He is most uncomfortable with the underprivileged, thinking that Sha Shing was promoted by going through the back door. As that old man Sengoku's eyes blinded this way. It's ridiculous. Even the Sand Crocodile made a mockery of Marine, what the 4th Admiral White Lions. It's ridiculous. Hey, that little White Lion, can you still wet the bed? The evil king smiled, his whole body also stood a little forward, revealing a ferocious face that seemed to scare Sha Shing. Thank you, Magellan, for bringing us such a funny joke in this dark hell. I can be sure that the world government is already an empty shell waiting to be completely decomposed. Magellan and Momosegi's group all listened to their faces with gloomy expressions. Sha Shing also looked at these prisoners one by one, and the curiosity in her eyes had been put away. To shut up, Magellan roared furiously, purple poisonous gas emerging from his body. Yo, our warden is angry. The cask also joined a sentence at this time, not afraid of Magellan at all. Do you dare to kill us? Magellan, your poison may get us free from these handcuffs and ankle chains. Crescent Hunter Caitlin smiled sullenly and looked at Magellan contemptuously. Ordinary criminals may still dare to do it, but Magellan like them dare not do it lightly. After all, his poison is corroded to a certain extent, making it possible for them to fight to break the shackles. These words are not wrong. After all, Admiral is the claw of celestial dragons. It is their freedom to sit on this kid as Admiral. What's more, this kind of kid, I crushed it with a finger. Quote. Bullet said with a sneer, and also walked to the iron railing, showing his face and looking at Sha Shing. Hearing Bullet's words, the other prisoners laughed wildly. Earl Red didn't make a sound, watching quietly in the innermost cell. Blackbeard Teach couldn't help but see these ferocious prisoners taunting world government and the White Lion Sha Shing. Just when Momosegi Gion was angry, Magellan resisted it. You guys, it's a bit noisy. Sha Shing yawned lazily, and then his eyes condensed, and the powerful Conqueror's Haki surging out, instantly covering the entire 6th floor. The huge Conqueror's shock was accompanied by an armed attack, extremely violent, and instantly cracked the stone slabs on the ground. The prisoners changed their eyes one by one, and looked at Sha Shing incredulously. This is Conqueror's Haki. Caitlin couldn't help but screamed, and then she was hit hard by the impact and hit the wall. Bullet even felt the power of Sha Shing in the shock, and wanted to release his Haki resistance, but found that it was instantly suppressed. Asterisk. Chapter 13. Bullet, do you continue to fight Conquerors? Advertisement. The top level of Conqueror's Haki. With a horrified expression on Bullet's face, Sha Xing's powerful Conqueror's Haki hit the wall directly, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Criminals such as the Evil King, the Barrel, and the San Juan Hungry Wolf were also hit by the powerful Conqueror's Haki, and fell to the ground severely injured, worse than Bullet, not only vomiting blood from the mouth, but also overflowing from the corners of the eyes and ear holes. Blood. Crocodile was shocked to feel the terrifying aura from the impact, and almost instantly he was impacted on the solid cell wall, leaving blood on his head. Even Red Earl was not spared. The old body released his Conqueror's Haki, but he could not resist it, and was instantly suppressed and vomited out blood like Bullet. There was a violent air current on the entire 6th floor. Magellan, Blackbeard and others looked shocked and backed away again and again. White Lion Admiral, in particular, Magellan and Hannibal were shocked by the fact that they were not hit by Haki, but they were also swept past. Huge, mighty, and tremendous mental pressure made myself sink. Blackbeard Teach was completely stunned, watching the air raging, and Haki's surging 6th layer, his body trembled slightly. White Lion Admiral's Haki power this time is even more terrifying than the one against himself. Even Bullet and Earl Red were severely wounded and let out a painful groan, and vomited blood. Fortunately, this time I didn't do it on myself. Momosegi looked at the various horrors of the suppression of the 6th floor prisoner, his mouth pursed, and his eyes trembling. It wasn't until Haki disappeared that Bullet fell to the ground and climbed up with difficulty. Marine Admiral. At this time, the villainous king roared, his expression full of shame after being severely hit by the suppression, but also hidden traces of fear. The big wine barrel, Caitlin, the sand crocodile Kirkdale and others all lay on the ground with horror, without words. Even the huge San Juan Hungry Wolf was half kneeling in the huge cell, panting heavily. This Marine Admiral didn't go through the back door, it really has terrifying power. Moreover, the king's qualifications will not be awakened in the marine system. In addition to the marshal, there is only one special case Garp. The eyes of many criminals were trembling, and they looked unexpectedly shocked. Sha Shing released Conquerors and crushed these prisoners with a heavy blow. Lazily walked towards the cell of Bullet, which was called the happiest. How could this kid? Even Roger doesn't have such a powerful Conqueror's Haki. Bullet stood up and grabbed onto the iron fence, opened his bloodshot eyes and looked at Sha Shing. His shocked face was overflowing with blood, and his whole body was in severe pain. But this happened again. A guy at such a young age who was still a marine had such a terrifying Conqueror's Haki, and he could directly attack the entity without even moving. Conqueror's Haki can also be covered with armed Haki. One of Haki's highest skills has only one person before, and that is Rocks. Earl Red sat on the ground and touched the corner of his mouth, and the stunning and shocking voice faintly spread out, breaking through the skills hidden in the Haki that Sha Shing exploded. Some people who knew the old age, Bullet and Crocodile couldn't help being shocked and looked at Sha Shing in disbelief. How could it be that he was still so young? How could he have such a magical skill that no one at sea would use? But the impact power just now had a penetrating vibration. Could it be Armament Haki's penetrating body? Advertisement. Bullet watched Sha Shing walking slowly, with a casual expression on his face, and shouted unconvinced. Old Man Red, you must be mistaken. How could this little guy have such skills? I don't believe it. As he said, Bullet's eyes narrowed. His own Conqueror's Haki burst out in an instant, covering the 6th floor, and almost completely released Haki in the shock. He rushed to Sha Shing violently. The criminals on the 6th floor were all under the indiscriminate shroud of bullet, their bodies received little impact and they were not directly impacted on the wall like Sha Shing, and no one fainted under bullets. Conquerors. The people here are all first-class masters. Even Hannibal will not be stunned by bullet, but his complexion is sweaty, let alone Momoshiki and others. Ace, who was watching the play silently, also closed his head and watched Bullet confront Sha Shing. In the dark blue Conqueror's Haki, Sha Shing walked to the door of Bullet's cell unaffected, her eyes indifferent. Still playing, Sha Shing looked at the way Bullet gritted his teeth, standing motionless. Bullet looked startled, and finally retracted Haki, looking at Sha Shing gloomily. He claims to be a genius who surpasses Roger, but he is not even better than a kid. At the age of this white lion, his talent is better than him. I don't know how much it is, so it's an exaggeration. It seems that the armed color coverage is also true. I tried it during the release just now, and Conquerors, who hadn't even reached the top level, had no clue to display it. The ridicule just now completely slapped himself in the face. Finally, Bullet's eyes lightened up, and he took a step back unwillingly, and disappeared into the darkness of the cell. As Bullet flinched, the prisoners present were completely silent. Conqueror's Haki's contrast just now is obvious enough. One is in the sky and the other is underground, the gap is huge. The talent of this white lion is too terrible. It's bizarre enough to have the king's qualifications as a marine, and it's such a terrifying Haki. If you add fruit power, or use physical swordsmanship, wouldn't it be invincible right away? Rocks are reborn. You must know that he already knows the two most important abilities to become the top power, and they are still the kind of thief. Everyone looked at Sha Shing in shock, and even held their breath. Momoshiki felt the powerful Haki of Sha Shing again, and at this time he reacted a little faster, looking at Sha Shing with a pair of beautiful eyes with inexplicable meaning. Hannibal and Magellan swallowed their throats, completely stunned. Sha Shing did not look at the already silent 6th-tier prisoners, turned around and leaned lazily on Momoshiki's body. It's boring. Momoshiki chuckled when she heard Sha Xing's words. The criminals here are notorious, the real murderers. Nowadays, under the suppression of Sha Shing, he dare not even say a word. Just now, he had a face of mocking and disdain, and he could not belittle Sha Shing blindly. The slap was really loud for them. It's boring here. Momoshiki dragged Sha Shing in angrily and started walking outside. Asterisk. Chapter 14. Magellan Report, High-Level Shock. Advertisement. Blackbeard Teach watched Sha Shing and the others start to leave, but he could only follow behind him in a jealousy. Before leaving, he couldn't help but glance back, his eyes shaking a little. Although these people are vulnerable under Sha Shing, they are undoubtedly powerful characters. Later, Sha Shing and Momoshiki, followed by Blackbeard, immediately returned to Marineford. I can finally go back and eat the pineapple pie. Too lazy to lie on the bow, Sha Xing's expression showed an expression of excitement. At this time, the Marineford Naval Headquarters Fortress, the Marshal's office. Sengoku, Garp, Aokiji, Kizaru, Akainu, Admiral, and the general staff of Crane were all gathered around the table to discuss whether to execute the sentence publicly. In this regard, with the support of Sengoku and Akainu, Garp and Aokiji believe that there is no need for public execution. The public execution is bound to start a battle with the Whitebeard pirates. Whitebeard twisted Gat, but he is known as the strongest man in the world, and he also has the power to destroy the world, shock fruit ability. There is also a large fleet of 43 pirate groups under its banner, and each captain is a pirate famous for New World. The captains of the various teams are even more powerful. The significance of public execution is extraordinary, and it is of great significance. I still think that punishment must be executed even if it is to fight Whitebeard. Akainu was already arguing with Aokiji a little anxiously at this time, and her voice grew louder. Kizaru and the Suru staff did not speak, and sat quietly in their seats watching. Marine executives couldn't make up their minds, and Marshal Sengoku could only communicate with the 5 elders of Mariajoy through the video phone worm. It's true that the matter is very important at this time, and there are advantages to publicity and non-disclosure, but there are also corresponding difficulties. In the video, the 5 elders also frowned upon hearing about the Fire Fist Ace. Rushing into a war with Whitebeard and twisting gates does have a major hidden danger. This man is too powerful. The post-war impact was enough to spread all over the world, but the idea in 5 elders' mind was also biased towards public executions, even considering whether to deal with Whitebeard and get it together. You can't be afraid of the power of Whitebeard's twisting gate. World government and marine have a certain degree of certainty. At this moment, the phone on Sengoku's desk rang like a worm. The argument and discussion between the two sides couldn't help but stop. This phone worm only reached out to important places. Sengoku and 5 elders asked for instructions and then picked up the phone. Marshal Sengoku, this is Impel Down. From the phone worm, Magellan's voice came out. Sonda, Garp and others all looked over in a daze. The White Lion Sha Shing just escorted Ace over, this meeting should be sent in. The 5 elders also paused, listening to what would happen to Impel Down. Magnellan, is this something happening? Sengoku also had a sudden heart. This will be in discussions with 5 elders. Isn't it that Sha Shing hasn't come to Impel Down yet? It's not a big deal, but the White Lion Admiral sent the Fire Fist Ace in and something surprising happened. Magellan's voice made Sengoku and others breathe a sigh of relief. Think about it, what can happen if you send an individual in? Surprised, Sengoku was also curious about what happened to make Magellan react like this. Advertisement. After the White Lion Admiral came, he escorted Ace all the way to the 6th floor. Then the criminals on the 6th floor began to ridicule Admiral and angered the White Lion Admiral. Unexpectedly, the White Lion Admiral released the terrifying Conqueror's Haki directly. Bullet, Crocodile and others were hit hard, and the White Lion Admiral just stood still and didn't move his hands. Marshal Sengoku, the White Lion Admiral really deserves to be the 4th Admiral that you voted against the crowd. It's amazing. Magellan spoke with a shocking voice from the phone worm, and recounted what had just happened on the 6th floor. Although I knew that Xia Xing's Conqueror's Haki was good at it for a long time, I couldn't help being surprised when I heard the news and looked at Garp and others. Garp, San Admiral, and the Crane staff all heard the voice of the phone worm and looked surprised. Those remnants of the old era who were imprisoned are not more than Sakazuki. Each of them is a detached existence with penultimate strength. Conquerors alone can suppress it. Obviously, Xia Xing's Conquerors has achieved an extremely amazing level. Just Conquerors. Even 5 elders' eyes flashed with surprise. Fourth, they know that Admiral's Conquerors is great, and they also have super top skills combining Conquerors and armed colors. But what they didn't expect was that Sha Shing could actually suppress the monsters of Impel Down. You must know that on the 6th floor, there is not only Bullet alone, but there are also characters like the Red Earl. Even Earl Hong did not resist. This is really amazing, indicating that Xia Xing's strength is very strong, completely beyond everyone's expectations. Bullet tried to use Conquerors to suppress the White Lion Admiral. I have to say that his Conquerors is indeed excellent, but in front of the White Lion Admiral there is more than one mention. Magellan exclaimed. How many top powerhouses have you seen as the director of Impel Down? Even One Piece Roger has seen and felt his Haki with his own eyes, but compared with Sha Shing, it is not worth mentioning. Then Magellan reported some work and hung up the phone. There was no words in the office for a long time, and everyone looked at each other with surprise. Sengoku was overjoyed at this time. Sha Shing really gave him a big surprise. The issue just now is largely due to the issue of high-end combat power. After all, the fact that Whitebeard's Twisted Getter and its forces should not be underestimated. With the strength shown by Sha Shing and the Aokiji trio, 7 warlords of the sea is enough to deal with the Whitebeard pirates. Sengoku slapped the table and stood up, and said solemnly to the 5 elders. Garp and Aokiji were also speechless. After all, the basis for their opposition was the lack of combat power. With the addition of a White Lion Admiral's terrifying power, even the famous captains of New World can't compete. From the point of view that it can hurt the lonely High Red, we can see that some famous people are coming. Logia can still dodge, but Conqueror's Haki's coverage is absolutely impossible to dodge. Sengoku, the public execution is approved. Marine is fully prepared to face the Whitebeard pirates, but it must not be taken lightly. The 5 elders immediately approved this public execution, and their words seemed very solemn. Clear. Sengoku naturally knew that even if he was executed at Marineford, he needed to be prepared for both losses and failure. That man will definitely come. Hearing the absolute public execution of the 5 elders, Garp sighed deeply, his eyes full of sadness. Suffering in the justice of loved ones and hearts. Aokiji had no choice but to shut up. Since 5 elders, the highest authority in the world government, had decided to execute the sentence publicly, as Marine, he could only obey the order. With the ability of the White Lion, we will have a greater chance of winning, but we must not take it lightly. Now we must immediately summon the elite Marine fighters from all over the world, and launch a mandatory call for 7 warlords of the sea to deal with Whitebeard. Sengoku turned around and glanced at Garp, who was lowering his head, and then solemnly said to everyone. Asterisk. Chapter 15. Go and invite Doflamingo to join the battle. Advertisement. Confirming the public execution, Sengoku issued a series of orders and began to gather elite Marines from all over the world. At the end of the meeting, everyone began to leave the marshal's office, leaving only Garp at Sengoku's desk. Garp lowered his head, his complexion extremely gloomy, and couldn't help but walk up to Sengoku's table and slap the table violently. He has been arrested and imprisoned. Must he be executed in public? Garp gritted his teeth and shouted lowly at his old friend. Garp. Sengoku looked at Garp with jerky eyes. The relationship between Ace and Garp is indeed not shallow. The son of One Piece Roger, Garp has grown up secretly. You should understand the meaning of this matter. You have to understand your position. Sengoku didn't have the majesty of being a marshal at this time, and said with persuasion like an old friend. Garp's eyes condensed, he clenched his fists vigorously, trembling all over, but at last he relaxed and walked out without saying a word. At this time, Sha Shing is returning to Marineford. I rushed all the way from Banaro Island and went to Impel Down again. This time was already approaching the afternoon. As soon as he got back, Sha Shing didn't want to report to Sengoku anymore, and let Momosuke go by himself. At this time, Sha Shing is full of the best pineapple pie, and can't wait to go back. Momosuke had no choice but to leave. At this time, Blackbeard Teach was also a little afraid and flattering to say goodbye to Sha Shing, took Poison Q, and Badges and others left. When Sha Shing returned to Shinksen, she had prepared a large pineapple pie, and she was delighted to enjoy it. After enjoying the beauty, Sha Shing, who was lazily lying on the sofa, also remembered to take a look at the system panel. System. In my mind, Sha Shing directly called out the system and expanded its own property panel. God-level salted fish growth system. Host. Sha Shing. Conqueror's Haki. 1708. Armament Haki. 1. Observation Haki. 1. Physical skills. 1. Swordsmanship. 1. Remaining available system attributes. 0 close black lens bracket. The own property panel is very simple and extremely simple. But the haki of this attribute point is extremely powerful, enough to reach a level above the normal level of the top level. For these Sha Shing, I don't care too much, it doesn't matter how much, anyway, I don't plan to fight for anything, it's just a salty fish. With her eyes closed beautifully, Sha Shing was on the boat for the first time for so long, and soon began to fall asleep. As Admiral, there is nothing serious and no one comes to bother. In this way, Sha Shing spent 2 days leisurely, basking in the sea breeze every day. Such days seemed to be very stable and comfortable. But the whole Marineford looked solemn. Some warships began to transport a lot of supplies here, and the marine family living in the town behind the fortress also began to evacuate. These movements, Sha Shing, naturally understood that the marine executives and the world government had agreed to a public sentence and began various preparations. The war is about to start, isn't it that my house won't exist for long? Sha Shing, who was lying on the roof basking in the sun, opened his eyes slightly. Advertisement. Thinking of Marineford, who had almost collapsed after the war on the top, also thought about how to fish and go to work. Forget it, don't bother to think about it, let's talk about it then. Thinking of this is very troublesome, Sha Shing is very salty and gave up thinking about things. At this time, inside the marshal's office, Sengoku was rubbing his eyebrows, looking at the documents on the table. That's the data stored in Marine, 7 warlords of the sea. Aokiji, Akainu, and Kizaru are all present, as well as Momosuke, T-Dolphin, Alternate Admiral, and Vice Admiral, Flying Squirrel. Elites from all over the world are coming, but 7 warlords of the sea only Gecko Moria and Blackbeard teach at this time, and the Storm Coon Bear agreed to the mandatory call. Sengoku stopped rubbing his eyebrows and looked at the crowd. Hawkeye Mahawk, the Pirate Empress Hancock, Jinbei, Doflamingo did not express their opinions, and even Jinbei refused. When everyone heard Sengoku's words, they couldn't help but feel a little confused. This extraordinary period is not the time to turn your face, these guys who have not expressed their opinions or even refused, you Admiral will go personally. Kuzan, you go to the Pirate Empress. Naturally, Sengoku would not just give up Shichibukai's combat power, and definitely sent Admiral to go personally. Aokiji Kuzan asked himself to find the most beautiful Pirate Empress in the rumor, and his eyes lit up and agreed. Sakazuki went to find Seaman Jinbei, Pelusalino went to Hawkeye Mahawk. By the way, where is Sha Shing? Then, Sengoku set it up again, and only now found out that even Sha Xing's shadow hadn't been seen in the past 2 days. That lazy lion is busy sleeping, blowing the sea breeze, basking in the sun, and eating pineapple pie. Momosuke Gion heard Marshal Sengoku mention Sha Shing, and immediately said without a fight. In the past 2 days, Cha Dolphin asked her to confess her marriage. Momosuke knew Cha Dolphin didn't want to meet Sha Shing at this time, so he went straight to Sha Xing's new home and found the salty smelly, white lion Sha Shing lazily lying on the roof and enjoying the pineapple pie. And the T-Dolphin knew that Momosuke had gone to Sha Xing's villa, and was not entangled in it. Sha Shing didn't care about Momosuke's arrival, he didn't bother to move. But soon, after a day, Momosuke was called to the office, and Sha Shing, as Admiral, found various reasons for the meeting to shirk the past. Good guy. Sengoku couldn't help but think to himself. This Sha Shing really thought that Admiral didn't need to clock into work. While thinking about it, Sengoku picked up the phone worm and called Sha Shing. At this time, Sha Shing was on the roof, and the phone bug in the coat pocket rang. Without even thinking about it, Marshal Sengoku must be the one who called, except for him and Sonda who will know about this phone worm. Sha Shing, there is a mission you have to go to. As soon as the phone worm got through, Sengoku said straightforwardly. It's Marshal Sengoku. Then I just went to a mission and haven't taken a break, or forget it. Sha Shing said lazily, still chewing sweet pineapple pie. Sengoku immediately got a black line, and Sha Shing didn't even ask about any tasks and said nothing. How lazy this guy is. You need to go to Dressrosa in New World and invite Heavenly Yaksha, one of the Shichibukai, to Marineford to participate in the fight against the Whitebeard pirates. Sengoku doesn't care what excuses Sha Shing makes at this time. But when I come back, I will be rewarded with a TV image bug. TV bug. As soon as I heard this word, Sha Shing felt a little bit more energetic. Isn't this the TV of this world? Asterisk. Chapter 16. Heavenly Yaksha and Golden Emperor. Advertisement. This video bug is a good thing. For the salted fish like Sha Shing, there are TV-like things in this world that can be watched. How can this be rejected? Ahem, Marshal Sengoku, this is what I should do as Admiral, why would I refuse? Go to New World to invite Shichibukai Doflamingo, right? I took it. Sha Shing sat up with bright eyes, and ate only half of the pineapple pie in his hand. This time calling Shichibukai to participate is very important, and I will leave it to you here. Sengoku's voice said with a slight smile. This TV bug was originally given to him, but the white lion was too lazy to live in his own house and didn't know it. Guaranteed to complete the task. Sha Shing stretched and hung up. You can get something similar to TV once you go out. Sha Shing knows that Doflamingo will definitely participate in the end. Momosuke watched Marshal Sengoku put down the phone, and the corners of his mouth moved slightly. I can't help but sigh. Zhang is still old and spicy. Mr. Sengoku knows Sha Xing's character very well, and he seems to understand the essence. The White Lion has agreed, Momosuke, then you should follow him. Sengoku told Momosuke Gion. The assignment was completed, and Aokiji, Akainu, Kizaru and others set off one after another. Momoshiki also went out to prepare the warship. Sha Shing also put on the Admiral uniform, swaying towards the square harbor. A few days later, in the palace of Dressrosa. In a hall, wearing a pink coat, Doflamingo, who was sitting at the top, looked at Disolo on the other side of the table and smiled. Pika, Diamante and other cadres were all present, watching Disolo sitting there with expressionless expressions. Since I let you go, you should sit in front of me for the first time, Disolo. Doflamingo smiled in a low voice, as if he had met an old friend. Indeed, it was the two people meeting again after many years. And Disolo sitting there is not the young man who was hunted down that year, with the Golden Emperor's aura and the self-confidence derived from strength. His own ability, the Golden Fruit, robbed Doflamingo. Although he was chased by the Don Quixote family at first, after some twists and turns, he was finally let go by the Shichibukai, the famous heavenly yaksha, and started a business cooperation. Joker, what important business do you want me to visit in person? Disolo shook the glass in his hand and said in a serious tone. This is a big business that can double your net worth in a short period of time, man-made devil fruit. Doflamingo laughed, looking at this guy who was now called the Golden Emperor and said. Disolo's eyes were solemn, his hand stopped, and he looked at Doflamingo in surprise. This thing is simply a taboo existence, is it really researched out? This kind of thing, why would you think of working with me? Disolo became suspicious when he heard Doflamingo's words. Although Disolo and Joker are now communicating on an equal footing, and with his awakened fruit ability, he is completely fearless of Joker, but suddenly it is still such a big business to find himself. I need you to buy raw materials, and some buyers. Advertisement. Doflamingo raised the wine glass in his hand and began to say his purpose with a unique smile. The types of materials needed to make devil fruit are really difficult to collect, so Doflamingo turned to Disolo. My biggest buyer, 4 Emperors Kaido, is already on the way. The first batch of goods is about to be delivered, and more will be needed later. With such good care, of course I have to do it. There are also channels in my Golden City. Desaro laughed, and agreed. Joker confined him to cooperate with this kind of thing because he values his current connections and strength. As for other things, take a step by step. The two talked in detail, and then they talked about the recent maritime situation. The sea seems to be uneven recently. The marine forces are not as conservative as before, but they have become quiet again in the last 2 days. My Golden Casino has also added a lot of pirates as guards. Joker, is it going to happen? What's the big deal? The two were talking. Disolo thought of the recent anomaly in the sea, and couldn't help asking Doflamingo. Marine's newly added 4th Admiral White Lion, you should know, Marine has one more member, Admiral is more active at sea, that's normal. Doflamingo mentioned the changes in Marine at this time. Teenage young people have served as the 4th Admiral. This matter has already been heated up, and it is said that there is still a strong strength. Disolo swallowed the wine in his mouth and said, with doubts in his tone. Marine Admiral is known as the highest combat power, but it is a young man who has never heard of it. It is hard to imagine how powerful a teenager can be. The so-called 4th Admiral looks more like Marine's bluff, which is really interesting. Doflamingo's eyes cannot be seen under his sunglasses, but the corners of his mouth twitch. Marine's 4th Admiral appeared, plus a mandatory call by the world government a few days ago. It's just that I am very sorry for my identity, but Doflamingo did not directly agree. Diamante and other cadres nodded in agreement. There may be strength, but it is definitely not as exaggerated as Admiral. If it is really Admiral level strength, then this White Lion would be too enchanting genius. Disolo's eyes changed, but then he thought about how it was possible. But it's good for you to be more prepared. It just happens to be our business, huh? Come in. Doflamingo was talking. At this time, a man outside the door ran over to report. Your Majesty, there is a warship approaching, and it seems to be the new 4th Admiral, the White Lion. The subordinate of this message ran all the way and said breathlessly. After all, it was a Marine Admiral who came over, and even Shichibukai's men were a little nervous. Marine Admiral's prestige and reputation in the world can be seen in Madara. Doflamingo chuckled slightly, a little surprised. Just talked about this White Lion, now it is almost here. Disolo, Diamante, Pika and other Don Quixote officials also unexpectedly looked at Doflamingo. Master, it seems that Marine Admiral came to you personally. To persuade me to agree to Marineford's summoning order, Marine is really persevering. Let's go out and see the majesty of this 4th Admiral. Doflamingo smiled and stood up, understanding the intention of Marine's arrival, and greeted Disolo and his cadres to walk out with arrogant steps. In the harbor of Dressrosa, the warship came slowly. Asterisk. Chapter 17. Brother Ming, don't give me any face. Advertisement. There was a group of marine warriors standing on the deck. Sha Shing made a deck chair at the bow of the ship and was lying there comfortably, while Momoshiki Gion stood by his side. White Lion Admiral, Dressrosa is here. Gion gently shouted to Sha Shing, who was closing her eyes. System, sign in. Sha Shing opened his eyes with a smile and stood up, looking at the big island. Dressrosa, the system prompted the new location, so he gave the sign in instruction in his mind. Sign into Dressrosa and get 150 system attribute points. The clear voice of the system prompted it. There are a lot of 150, and Sha Shing doesn't feel much. The 150 attribute points are all added to Conquerors. Originally, his Conquerors was 17,000. In addition to the random sign in during the past few days on the road, and this 150, the value has easily reached 1009. It is a lot better than when I dealt with a Kainu Blackbeard before. Stretching comfortably, Sha Shing walked much faster under Momosegi's pull, stepped off the warship, and a group of marines followed one after another. Haven't waited long to go ashore. Doflamingo, Disolo, Toripal, Diamante and others all appeared in front. This is the 4th Admiral, the White Lion, really young enough. Toripal kept his nose, holding a plum scepter in his hand, looking at it with surprise. This White Lion is much younger than the picture. Everyone nodded, especially Sha Shing looked weak when walking. Doflamingo was more certain about what he was thinking. This was Marine's bluff. This White Lion is probably a tool man supported by Sengoku or Kong. But Momosegi Gion next to him is more like the person in charge. Seeing this scene, the cadres of the Don Quixote family and Desaro despised a little and looked at them blankly. Sha Shing, Momosegi, and marine fighters naturally saw the Doflamingo group appear in front of them, and they did not welcome them. They just looked coldly, seemingly disdainful. Wearing a sulky pink coat, arrogant footsteps, wearing a pair of sunglasses. Sha Shing raised her eyes and looked at Brother Ming curiously. This is the 4th Admiral in the world famous recently, the White Lion. Why do you still need a woman to drag him away? Doflamingo jumped on a rock, raised Erlang's legs and said, the sarcasm in the words was self-evident. Sha Shing doesn't matter, I have a beautiful woman who takes it away, and I am happy to take it away. Salted fish will not look at other people's eyes. But Momosegi's eyes changed, and a little anger came up. Unexpectedly, this Shichibukai heavenly yaksha would start taunting himself secretly when they met. Pay attention to your words, Doflamingo. Momosegi Gion is not just a beautiful vase, she is also very powerful, she is also one of Marine's alternate admiral, and the cadres are surprised by the cold drink. You are not admiral yet, but you are not qualified to talk to my young master like this. Toripal on the opposite side also shouted immediately. What the young master said is that he has the background of celestial dragons, and Marine dare to drink coldly to the young master like this. At this time, Doflamingo reached out and stopped Toripal, saying that he didn't care. Alternate Admiral Momosegi, what are you Marine doing here? Doflamingo asked Momosegi knowingly. Advertisement. Standing lazily and curiously watching the Don Quixote family and Disolo's Sha Shing, he was directly ignored. So what about Admiral? This is just a puppet, and this Momosegi is the person in charge. This is the convening book. Doflamingo, in the name of the world government, please perform your Shichibukai duties and go to Marineford. And Sha Shing digs out on her body, and brings out a slightly crumpled summons book. As 7 warlords of the sea, this compulsory call cannot be denied. But who is Doflamingo, the former celestial dragons, and the uncrowned king of the underground world, the great pirate? Seeing the summoning book Sha Shing took out, he was taken aback, and then burst into laughter. White Lion, did Momosegi teach you this way before you came? Doflamingo didn't cooperate, but he laughed. The cadres behind him also laughed, especially Disolo laughed and despised Sha Shing. This is Marine's 4th Admiral. Seeing Doflamingo and the others not only didn't cooperate, but also laughed, they all looked furious. How can the Admiral White Lion be so laughed at by these pirates? Shut up, Doflamingo, this is Marine White Lion Admiral. Momosegi Gion looked angry, and the momentum burst out. But Marshal Sengoku confessed that it is not the time to offend Shichibukai. If you do something here, it might affect others. Sha Shing sighed deeply. I thought it would be easy to complete, but I didn't expect it to be so troublesome. This Doflamingo didn't even cooperate. No, just kidding, Admiral, the White Lion, I'll talk about the call-up book for a while. Now the gladiatorial contest is going on in the city, let's watch it first. Doflamingo waved to the cadre under his hand, and then said to Sha Shing. Marine sent someone to invite, but he couldn't leave with Sha Shing today. Because the people of 4 Emperors Kaido will also come to Dressrosa today to get the man-made devil fruit traded. It's too much trouble. I'm not interested. Let the person who brought you follow me to Marineford first. Sha Shing directly waved his hand lazily and refused and said, it's just a competition in the arena, and he really has no interest in seeing the fight. Sha Xing's attitude gave Doflamingo a headache. Why isn't this guy on the road? Disolo glanced at Doflamingo slightly. Why did he invite Marines like the White Lion to the arena? White Lion, Master is the king of Dressrosa, and he still has the blood of celestial dragons. Toripal, Diamante, Pika and others felt that the White Lion was too shameful for the young master, and shouted angrily. Before he finished speaking, Doflamingo reached out and stopped the cadres under him. White Lion, after all, I am a king, so I was summoned by you to Marineford. What do you want my kingdom to do? It doesn't matter if you don't go to the gladiatorial fight, then go to the palace and talk about it. At least I have to arrange government affairs. Quote. Doflamingo's words are very serious, if other Marines might have accepted it. But how could Sha Shing not know what Moral Rethrosa's situation is, but he didn't bother to control it. Time is limited, and it will take several days to go back. You must accept the summoning order and set off immediately. Sha Xing's complexion was flat and unmoved. I don't know what Doflamingo is. I can't delay my return. Anyway, as long as I bring it back, I will complete the task. Marshal Sengoku didn't say that he couldn't do this. Doflamingo felt helpless. The White Lion simply couldn't get in. He couldn't help but feel annoyed. Asterisk. Chapter 18. This is your conquerors. Look at mine. Advertisement. As the king of Dressaros, our 7 warlords of the sea, are you so shameless? A transparent silk thread moved slightly with his fingers and stretched over. Doflamingo sneered with blue veins surging on his head. When approaching Sha Shing, it was blocked by an invisible solid barrier, unable to penetrate it at all. This is Haki. Why should I give you face? At this time, Sha Shing said in a light tone, and the attitude when they met was cynic. Just now, Brother Ming made such a small move, but he noticed it and blocked it with Haki. White Lion Admiral is really a good method, so I also said clearly, accept the convening, but I need to entertain important guests, I can't just leave like this, right? The blue veins on Doflamingo's forehead violently, pointing to Disolo's side, but still speaking in the same tone as before. Easy, just go together. Sha Shing doesn't care about customers, and this guy is the boss of Golden City, Disolo. Disolo, the Golden Emperor, has the deepest impression that it is hard to be poor if he possesses this ability. White Lion, what do you mean? Hearing Sha Xing's words, Disolo said with a gloomy face. Does he even want to take away himself? What about offending Admiral? He is strong, and he has the same relationship with Mariajoy behind him. The meaning is very simple. The battle with Whitebeard requires combat power. Since Ming Jie said to entertain you, you can entertain you in another place. Naval headquarters is good. It just so happens that neither of you is a good thing, you can just make a pair. Sha Shing looked at the two of them and said straightforwardly, not caring about them in words. Doflamingo and his family and Disolo were taken aback. Then he laughed, and for a while, the atmosphere was a bit tense. Laughing, Doflamingo opened his hands, a lavender Conqueror's Haki burst out and enveloped the audience. An oppressive force moved the airflow towards the summer and released it. Then feel the king's conquerors. Torapal couldn't help but yelled. With a wicked smile, Doflamingo just wanted to say a few ruthless words to frighten him. Both Momosuke and Marine warriors showed weird expressions, and Sha Shing even smiled. No one is affected under my conqueror's Haki. Doflamingo was taken aback. That's it. How about you look at me? Sha Xing's eyes condensed, and the invisible conqueror's Haki burst out instantly. Click. The surrounding big rocks cracked directly under the cover of Conqueror's Haki in an instant. The ground is even more mud and gravel floating, and the cadres of the Doflamingo and Don Quixote families on the opposite side are all shrouded. Like an invisible mountain crushed down. Advertisement. Pika, Torapal, Diamante and others threw a plop and fell to their knees. They raised their heads with difficulty and looked at Xing with trembling eyes. They couldn't hold back lying on their stomachs after less than 2 seconds. On the ground, spit out a mouthful of blood. Disolo, who resisted the hardest, sank into the ground, unable to move. Doflamingo's own conqueror's Haki, but in front of Sha Xing's Haki, it was like a small child and a giant like a mountain. It was directly suppressed by Sha Xing's conquerors without a second. His own conqueror's Haki also collapsed, and then Kakuzu's mouth overflowed with blood, as if he suffered a serious internal injury from a punch. A few seconds later, the whole person was knocked out like a cannonball and knocked down behind him. One building with one. Finally, he shot directly into the huge arena in the distance. Boom. A big hole was smashed into the wall of the arena and fell on the ring, cracking the ground. Your Majesty Doflamingo. He was still fighting just now, and the excited arena was quiet for an instant, with a look of astonishment. His Majesty the King seemed to have been knocked into the air. Look over there, it's Marine Admiral. The audience sitting tall couldn't help but see a group of people in the direction Doflamingo flew. Marine, the Don Quixote family are all here. This is what happened, Your Majesty Doflamingo is all right. On Sha Xing's side, the cadres of the Don Quixote family were shocked. Impossible. How is this possible? You are a Marine, how could you have the qualifications of a king, how could you awaken Conqueror's Haki? Torapal exclaimed in disbelief, he knew a lot about this. Those who have the qualifications of a king are all pirates galloping in the sea, and among the strict hierarchical system of Marine, there is also the world government on their heads. It is almost impossible to awaken conquerors in such a place, and Admiral can't awaken conquerors. Haki can be seen. Are Iokiji, Akainu, and Kazaru not high-spirited? Are they not strong? Why can't I awaken conquerors? It is because of the environment and the belief between them. What a monster this white lion is, it can still awaken and possess such a powerful Haki. But this is not the time when Sha Shing has conquerors shocked. Don Quixote's cadres are full of anger on their faces. No matter how strong they are, it is only conqueror's Haki. Finally couldn't help it, Torapal, Pika and others started directly towards Sha Shing. Slimy meteor. Torapal's fruit power was activated, and the thick brown slippery mucus secreted from the body shook a huge stone and smashed it towards Sha Shing. Pika dived directly into the ground, there are rocks here. Amid the rumbling, a huge stone human head emerged from the ground, and under Pika's control, it directly flew towards Sha Shing and bit it. The long sword in Diamante's hand was bent into a horn-like shape. Under the cover of armament Haki, he followed the head of the stone man and was about to rush up. Olaji and others have used their own moves to prepare for the siege with Diamante. Momosuke frowned when the Marines faced the cadres of the Don Quixote family and wanted to do it. Sha Shing stared directly, and the terrifying conquerors swept over like a huge storm. The ground was lifted by a layer, the huge stone head, the huge boulder dropped, Diamante and other guys who wanted to fight in close combat, all the attacks and power were completely dissipated by the impact. How can it be? Torapal watched in disbelief at the dying scene before his eyes, and his eyes were about to fall. What is this Conqueror's Haki? It's too scary. Before he could have any more thoughts, Don Quixote's cadres were suppressed, his eyes widened and the corners of his mouth were bleeding into the ground. Asterisk. Chapter 19. Rampage, God Slaying and Gold Karma Fire. Advertisement. Sha Shing. At this time, Doflamingo rushed back again, seeing this scene, the violent veins surged, and he was completely angry. The fourth Admiral is really not easy, you are very powerful. You can still have this Conqueror's Haki. Doflamingo laughed madly in anger, it seemed that both he and Disolo had expected it to be completely wrong. The footsteps fell on the ground, and the ground began to turn into thin white lines. He is awakening the Devil Fruit ability. Momosuke Gion's eyes changed drastically, and he said solemnly to Sha Shing. The ability of awakened Devil Fruit is not simple. It is unexpected that Doflamingo will awaken in anger under such a suppressed situation. The white line spread under Brother Ming's feet and approached step by step. The subordinates who were severely injured and suppressed were all excited. Even Sha Shing looked at Doflamingo with a little surprise, good fellow, who actually awakened the fruit ability 2 years earlier. Disolo, shoot together. The Haki on Doflamingo rises with a ferocious look as he greets Disolo. Tell this young admiral a long time ago. Disolo lowered his head slightly and looked at Sha Shing fiercely. Even the top Conqueror's Haki that can affect the substance is not afraid of him. At this time, the entire Dressrosa trembled slightly, as if something was pouring over. As this gold, Sha Shing, Momosuke and others, Marine both looked at something surging from a distance, and didn't realize until they came to the front that it was gold that had formed like a liquid, and it was now flowing over. Disolo opened his hands, and gradually turned into a golden giant under the gold liquid package with a hee-hee laugh. Your Haki is really good, but can you stop my golden giant's attack? Humph. There was continuous influx of gold and the constant improvement and expansion of the giant, Disolo's voice came out in it. Disolo still doesn't believe how strong Sha Shing can be. No matter how terrifying an impact Conqueror's Haki is, he can't stand his huge and powerful golden fist. Moreover, Doflamingo has also awakened the power of Devil Fruit. The people on Marine's side couldn't help but tremble when looking at this scene. The huge golden man was really oppressive. His ability seems to have reached a state of awakening. Momosuke Gion's eyes became serious, and Sha Shing said, pushing comfortably. Disolo, this crazy guy is about to shoot, are you still leaning on me? I see, it won't get in the way. Sha Shing didn't bother to stand up straight anymore, just watching Disolo gather to complete a huge body. Doflamingo's feet have also been completely covered, and the white line is surging like a wave, and even the feet of Sha Shing and others have been affected. The huge figure is like an extension of the whole body. Disolo can't help but laugh loudly, feeling the feeling of strength in his body, and directly hit Sha Shing and Momosuke with anger. Doflamingo felt the strength of his body and moved his finger. The surging white dense thin lines on the ground rushed into 16 highly densely entangled white waves around Sha Shing, Momosuke and Marine everyone. Above it is the fist of the giant golden man, surrounded by Doflamingo's awakening ability attacks. White Lion Admiral. The Marines shrugged their shoulders, their faces full of horror and straight hair. All Marines present are covered by Disolo's huge fist. Even the surrounding white lines are surging flexibly. You block. Admiral the White Lion. Advertisement. Disolo, who was in a golden body, saw the horrified faces of the Marines and smiled. The gold industry is on fire. Disolo's huge fist struck out the effect of molten gold in the friction and strength of the air, and the fierce fire burned down on the fist. Even the air was affected at this moment and caused strong winds. 16 sacred bullets. God punishes them. Doflamingo was also full of anger, grinning grinningly, and waved his hand at Sha Shing. 10-6 paths covered the sharp thorns formed by Haki's line waves and rushed towards Sha Shing. Except for the underground, all places were covered by Doflamingo and Disolo's attacks. 2 great awakening abilities. The terrifying power that even the island is shaking. When the attack falls, I am afraid that this end of the island has completely disappeared. The Marines were terrified, and Momosuke also drew out the long knife. What a spectacular scene. At this time, Sha Shing sighed, these scenes are almost destroying the island. Conqueror's Haki burst out from the eyes. A semicircular hood is formed. Disolo's gold industry was suppressed, and was completely withstood by the transparent Conqueror's Haki. Doflamingo's 16 fierce bullets, the God Killer also stabbed Sha Xing's invisible Conqueror's Haki, red and black Haki lightning filled it. Sean still doesn't move. How can it be? As if hitting the seastone ground with a punch, Disolo felt unshakable, his complexion changed drastically. What power is this? Isn't the intangible Conqueror's Haki intangible? Just now, even if it was suppression, the impact force was formed to suppress oneself, but now there is neither impact force nor other flowing power. Why is his fist blocked like this? The fist braving the flames froze in this way on the heads of Sha Shing and many Marines. The flames were burning and gradually extinguished. Sha Shing smiled slightly, and with a movement of her mind, Conquerors instantly spread. Doflamingo's slaying killing was directly scattered and flew away. The thin lines that were affected on the ground have all become normal. At this time, there was a click with the impact. Cracks began to appear in Disolo's golden fist, and soon spread across the entire huge body. With a bang, the golden giant turned directly into pieces. An unmatched powerful force directly destroyed all the offensives of Doflamingo and Disolo. With a bang, the golden giant turned directly into pieces. Disolo fell down with a look of embarrassment, and was directly suppressed by Sha Xing's Haki to the ground. He spit out a mouthful of blood, lying on the ground, unable to move, his expression horrified. Even the things affected by Doflamingo's awakening fruit ability have been reversed. Conqueror's Haki covered armament Haki. Impossible. Doflamingo was stunned directly in place, watching both of his offensives be destroyed. He also had Conqueror's Haki in his body, and he discovered this incredible scene under his intensive observation. The invisible Haki put on a tangible armed color. It's a fantasy, how did he do it? Asterisk. Chapter 20. Jack the Drow is here. Advertisement. At this time, the suppression of Sha Shing Conqueror's Haki almost came to Doflamingo at the same time that Disolo was suppressed. Without any resistance, Doflamingo was also directly pressed to the ground, with red and black colors on his body. The next moment he was bleeding from his 7 orifices, and he was shocked by Xia Xing's Haki. It's too powerful. How can it be so strong? And it's Conquerors. I've never heard of anyone who can be so powerful that Conquerors. Disolo, who was suppressed to the ground, trembled in his eyes and heart at the same time. Just kidding, can't it be strong? Xia Xing's current Conqueror's attribute has reached more than 1,900 points. You must know that it was only 1,500 when dealing with Akainu, and the 2 Tihanan were not killed on the spot. It is considered Xia Xing's subordinates to be merciful. Are you still playing? I can play with you again if I want to continue. Sha Shing looked at the two with low eyebrows, and said lightly. Doflamingo and Disolo looked at each other, and both fell silent. White Lion Admiral. The Marines all cheered, and they were indeed shocked the moment their fists fell. And in the hands of the White Lion Sha Shing, it is easy to solve it by Conqueror's Haki. What is your fate? No matter how many times I felt it, Momoshiki felt deeply shocked. In particular, Xia Xing's Conquerors seems to have been increasing, this time the intuitive feeling is stronger than the last time I felt there. The growth of Conqueror's Haki is nothing but boldness and fate. How bold and fate does he have to bear such a terrifying Conqueror's Haki? Momoshiki Gion was completely curious. When a woman has such curiosity and desire to explore men, some subtle changes will happen without knowing it. Fate. Sha Shing didn't listen to Gion's whisper, but she was too lazy to think. He just wants to take these guys back to Marineford, then turn on the TV bug, lie down beautifully, and nibble on the pineapple pie. Get ready, now we will set off back to Marineford. Sha Shing glanced at Disolo and Doflamingo, who were suppressed on the ground and unable to move, with bleeding in their nostrils and mouths. They withdrew Haki's suppression, stretched and spoke indifferently. The Marines behind them all saluted enthusiastically and excitedly and returned to the warship. Disolo lowered his head with an ugly look, and now he didn't dare to say anything, he was still in severe pain. Doflamingo broke half of his glasses and stood up staggeringly. He didn't resist anymore and laughed wildly. You better leave me alone today, White Lion, today I can't leave directly, and there is an important guest coming. A guest you can't mess with. Doflamingo was swaying, but his attitude was still extremely arrogant. Oh, who is it? Momoshiki Gion took back the long knife in his hand, this Doflamingo was defeated and still so arrogant. Jack the Drow of Beasts Pirates will come to fetch an important thing today, or something that Kaido is extremely valued. Do you Marine dare to provoke a 4 Emperor now? Moreover, the Drought is the most ferocious guy in Beasts Pirates. Doflamingo laughed loudly, full of playfulness. Marine called 7 warlords of the sea for what he knew very well, against the Whitebeard pirates, the leader of the 4 emperors. Advertisement. How to provoke another 4 emperors Kaido now. Jack the Drow. Momoshiki Gion and Marine both changed their faces and moved. Jack the Drow is offering a reward of 1 billion, and he is also one of the 3 cadres in Beasts Pirates. His strength cannot be underestimated. The most important thing is that Jack has the strongest creature Kaido behind him. That monster who dared to make trouble with Marineford many times alone, but couldn't be executed and injured after being caught. It is really troublesome if Kaido is completely annoyed during this time. Oh, it's him, who I thought it was. Get on the boat, Doflamingo, Disolo. Sha Shing yawned, waved weakly and said, not paying attention to what Doflamingo said. What else does Ming Jie and Kaido have? It's nothing more than taking artificial devil fruit, right? Is it because of this thing that he has delayed his return? Doflamingo's answer to Sha Shing was even more gloomy, and his hands trembled a little, thinking that Sha Shing did not believe what he said. You will regret it, White Lion. Doflamingo smiled madly, and could only go to the boat at the Marine warrior's signal. Ola G, Torapal, Diamante and others were also dragged directly onto the warship by Marine soldiers. Disolo looked unhappy, but now there is no way the situation is better than others. I can't see that Sha Shing doesn't even care about Beasts Pirates. He could only walk towards the warship behind Doflamingo. The cadres have all gone, but only 1 granulated sugar stayed in the kingdom. I hope that the granulated sugar can stabilize the people who come from Kaido, and consciously give them the artificial devil fruit, so don't delay things. After all, this is the first delivery of finished products after the deal has been negotiated with 4 emperors Kaido. If it is not completed, Kaido, one of the 4 emperors on the sea, will be offended. After boarding the warship, Doflamingo, Disolo and others did not have a marine to take care of. Even Sha Shing lay directly on the bow. Momoshiki entered the main ship room and contacted Marineford to report. On the same ship as Marine Admiral, Don Quixote's men can't help but feel a little restrained and uncomfortable. They all leaned together and spoke quietly. Doflamingo and Disolo also looked at each other and were silent. This time, the faces of both of them were slapped, and the front foot was still in the palace. It was affirming that Sha Shing was a puppet walking through the back door. I didn't expect it to be such a powerful master of Haki. At this time, the warship had completely moved away from Dressrosa. Those people in the arena couldn't help but want to look closer and didn't dare. They could only see from a distance that Doflamingo and others launched a powerful attack, the huge golden man, and the white wave on the ground, but finally saw the horror. All of his power was dissipated by an invisible force. The people of Dressrosa looked horrified, but did not know the specific situation, only that the kings lost to Marine Admiral, and were taken on the warship and left. An uproar. On the warship, there was a calm atmosphere, driving on the calm sea. Just when he drove out of the sea area of Dressrosa after driving for a long time. The observer on the mast came from Marine soldiers. White Lion Admiral, Momoshiki Vice Admiral, there is a pirate ship coming straight ahead. It's the Banner of Beasts Pirates. Asterisk. Chapter 21. Is the White Lion really going to make a move? Advertisement. After the warship moved away, it was about to enter the ocean current dedicated to marine in the calm belt. In the distance, a pirate ship came head-on. White Lion Admiral, Momoshiki Vice Admiral, there is a pirate ship coming straight ahead. It's a Beasts Pirates ship. News came from marine soldiers watching from the mast. I ran into it so soon. Momoshiki Gion looked at the boat that was passing by and said solemnly. This is one of the 3 major disasters of Beasts Pirates, Jack the Dro's ship. When I got closer, I saw the huge mammoth head on the opposite ship's bow through the telescope. Sha Shing sat up on the bow and stretched. It's Jack, the ship king, this is a reckless man. White Lion Admiral, Momoshiki Vice Admiral, shall we fire? Marine a Rear Admiral asked. It is still possible to sink them with warship firepower. No, it's too noisy to fire. Sha Shing leaned forward and waved her hand. I still like to be quiet, the sound of the shells is too loud. Yes, Admiral. Marine Rear Admiral saluted, and the order was passed on. Doflamingo, Disolo, Toripal, Diamante and others all heard the Beasts Pirates ship approaching from a distance, and their eyes lit up. Master, Jack the Dro is here. Toripal smiled. God helped me too. Doflamingo also showed a cruel smile. The drought is coming. White Lion, how will you deal with it? Do you want to offend 4 Emperors Kaido and Jack in a battle here or avoid it? On the pirate boat opposite. The pirates also took the telescope and saw the warship on the opposite side. Master Jack, the opposite is a warship, it's marine. Lord Doflamingo is also on the opposite warship. The pirate yelled unexpectedly. As for the warships and the pirates, they didn't look worried, but looked excited. Jack the Dro, who was tall and strong, with a ponytail and 2 braids, a metal jaw on his mouth, and 2 ivory decorations on his head and shoulders, stood up. There is also an accident in the exposed eyes. How could Doflamingo be on a warship? Knowing that Master Kaido would send someone to fetch devil fruit, he will not leave unless he is reluctant. Don't slow down, just lean in. Thinking of this, Jack's eyes widened and his face looked fierce. Marine, on my only way, I can only say that you are out of luck. Master Jack, standing on the opposite warship is Alternate Admiral, Momoshiki. The pirates couldn't help but feel a little astonished. In such a deep new world, they encountered Vice Admiral, the alternate of naval headquarters. As for Sha Shing lying on the side of the bow, they didn't notice it. It wasn't until Jack's pirate ship got closer and closer that Jack and a group of pirates found the yellow epaulets lying on the shoulders of Sha Shing, who was on the side of the bow. That is, Marine Admiral. The gang of pirates were shocked and Jack was shocked. But stunned back to stunned, who is Jack? Little ones, get the boat over. Jack looked fierce, and shouted directly. Master Jack. The pirates all screamed, surprised. Master Jack actually wanted to attack Admiral. Who do you think I am? Come on. Jack roared with round eyes. Even if Marine Admiral meets it today, you have to touch it. Advertisement. The pirates have no choice but to lean over. When the distance gets closer, Jack directly orders to fire the cannon. The 6th gate cannon fired shells towards the warship. On the warship, the marine soldier also looked surprised. This was the first time I saw the warship with Admiral and the pirates who dared to approach him on their own initiative. This was too arrogant. Later, I saw the shells coming. Momoshiki Gion was expressionless. He drew his sword and slashed directly, and the sword chi directly slashed through the air and exploded the cannonball. Jack the Dro's ship fired shells and approached. Doflamingo and others were also watching by the side of the ship, knowing that Jack probably found himself. The warship on the sea is obviously much larger than Jack's pirate ship, and much higher. Jack raised his head slightly and looked at Momoshiki and Sha Shing on the bow with his eyes open. The 4th Admiral White Lion, Joker, why are you on this warship? Jack saw Doflamingo behind him and asked his men. The White Lion Admiral personally came to Dressrosa to show me the mandatory convening order of the world government, and had no choice but to follow the warship to gather with other Shichibukai. The transaction can only wait, Jack. Not to mention anything else, Doflamingo said with a sad look at Jack on the opposite ship. Doflamingo. Momoshiki stared, and looked at Doflamingo coldly. This is my freedom. Doflamingo chuckled, but said nothing. It's enough to watch Jack's performance next. Jack really looked like this. Joker was going to naval headquarters, and there were cadres with his staff. That is, the transaction that Governor Kaido explained could not be carried out. How can this be accepted? Hey, Marine White Lion. Let go of Doflamingo. Jack's eyes widened and he shouted at Sha Shing fiercely, as if he had forgotten that he was a pirate and that he was facing Marine. A pair of ships approached and went to war immediately. Jack the Drow was fierce and fearless. Sha Shing touched his forehead, looked at Jack's rising momentum, sighed and stood up. It's really troublesome. Marshal Sengoku, this is not something that a TV video bug can handle. Momosuke looked at Sha Shing in surprise, this slacker stood up by himself. Sha Shing shrugged and smiled helplessly at Momosuke. In this case, it is better to solve it directly by yourself, and other people will take more trouble. In case the warship is damaged and can't go away, it will take more time. After that, he shook his hands and feet one after another and jumped directly with his legs. The entire warship shook. Sha Shing swept across the sky and jumped directly onto Jack's pirate ship. Jack the Drow and others all looked surprised. Marine White Master Admiral. The pirates were all taken aback. Even Jack showed a look of astonishment. The people on the warship were even more surprised, and the White Lion jumped out. Momosuke, who has been following Sha Shing out of missions, was surprised, especially the subordinates of Sha Shing. Doflamingo's expression changed, but Sha Shing unexpectedly jumped over it. This White Lion is going to make a real shot. Disilo couldn't help talking to himself, his eyes trembled. His Conqueror's Haki is so terrifying, this is going to be a real shot. The strength of Sha Xing's body itself is constantly increasing. Now that he doesn't even know how strong his strength is, this jump seems a bit too strong, causing the warship to sink and bounce again. Falling on Jack's bow made the stern of the boat tilt up a lot. After Jack was surprised, without saying anything, he directly raised his weapon and attacked the past. Asterisk. Chapter 22. Drought. But so, advertisement. Knowing that Doflamingo is going to be taken away from the warship above, not to mention that Marine jumped over directly. Jack has no other thoughts and wants to say more. If it's the enemy, just do it. Jack's figure is huge, Sha Shing looks like a child in front of him, and his arms are almost as big as Sha Xing's body. This would hold two straight knife-shaped lower body and sickle-shaped upper body weapons, and with fierce power, they swung directly towards Sha Shing. Ding! 1 meter in front of Sha Shing, Jack's slashing blow was like a symphony of golden iron on a solid iron wall. What is this? Jack's eyes were astonishing. No matter how hard he tried, the invisible barrier in front of Sha Shing didn't move. Is it the power of devil fruit? But there is obviously the feeling of armed color covering, which is very strange. Jack didn't know that Sha Shing was carrying Conqueror's Haki's top skills, jumping back in confusion. The two weapons in his hand were turned, covering the more powerful armament Haki, and quickly swung over. Time after time, there was a tinkling sound, but I couldn't shake the barrier in front of Sha Shing. Sha Shing stood there lazily, watching Jack's attack indifferently. Behind Jack, a group of pirates looked dumbfounded. Master Jack's attack didn't break. That invisible barrier. Jack's subordinate Hold'em said in surprise. Jack's men, Kim Lamy and Sipshead, were also surprised. Question mark. They all know Jack's power very well. Question mark. Jack the Drow, it's just that. Question mark. Sha Xing's eyes were indifferent, but what he said made Jack even more violent. Arrogant. This White Lion is arrogant. Everyone go together. Jack roared directly with a trace of anger. This is on my boat. Jin Lamy and the three were all agitated, and the pirates even took out their guns and fired them directly. Hold'em was holding his own machine knife, the lion head on his waist sprayed out flames, and the machine knife in his hand also entangled with flames. Hell Flame Knife. As Beast's pirates, Hold'em made a full shot, and he also had a bit of violent power. No matter how young this person is, this is the real Admiral, and Master Jack hasn't hacked it for a long time and you can see it. At the same time, Jin Lamy, in the form of artificial devil fruit. Springbok, also attacked the past with a weapon in his hand. Sipshead changed his hand directly, and a goat horn was changed, and it slammed towards Sha Shing. Just after the three-man made demon fruit power and the pirate made their move, Jack roared from behind, and his whole body began to change. The head and limbs began to change, and a semi-beastized form appeared in front of Sha Shing. It turned out to be the strongest form of Zone Fruit, a semi-beast form. Sha Shing didn't look at any other attacks, and looked straight at the transformed Jack the Drow. All kinds of attacks were blocked 1 meter before Sha Shing. Jin Lamy and other three real fighters felt that the attack was on a thick sea stone wall, and it was impossible to shake it at all. On the contrary, this big ship was completely blocked. Shaking up. Advertisement. How can it be? The cold sweat on Sipshead's head remained, and everyone attacked together and couldn't break the invisible barrier, and the force of the counter shock even made their hands hurt. At this time, the three of them turned their heads in a bit of horror, and saw the half-beastized Jack the Drow. This zone's semi-beastized form. It's horrible. All three of Jin Lamy looked at Jack with excitement, with some envy in their eyes, and at the same time marveled at the power of Lord Jack. On the warship, Momosuke and others watched the pirates attack without worry, their eyes changed when they first saw Jack's transformation. The 3 plagues of beasts pirates, the guy offering a billion rewards is really strong. Marine Rear Admiral on the ship couldn't help but said in surprise, this kind of semi-animalized form is really unseen. Momosuke looked at Jack's powerful sense of power with dignified eyes. He didn't worry in his heart, but looked forward to seeing Sha Xing's hands. Doflamingo, his cadres, and Disilo all smiled. Maybe Jack the Drow would make Sha Shing flat, right? Go away. The sound of Wang Sheng and Wang's anger sounded. Jack took 2 steps and took 1 step, holding two weapons Haki covered and wounded and rushed over again, the power under his feet even cracked the deck. The three true fighters kept attacking, feeling the pain of reversal in their hands, and immediately jumped away when they heard Jack's words, and waved in the surprised eyes of everyone. The horror power brought by the semi-beastization and the armed Haki even affected the surrounding air, as if compressed. Boom. The entire pirate ship shuddered violently, stirring up huge waves, and then violently bounced and shook. Jack's attack also completely hit the Conqueror's Haki barrier of Sha Shing, making a loud noise. At the next moment, a look of horror appeared on Jack's beastly face. How can it be? Under such a fierce and powerful attack, the obstacle 1 meter in front of Sha Shing still cannot be shaken. Even Sha Xing's expression did not change, she still looked at Jack the Drow with a curious look. Jack was stunned, this was already his full blow. The three real fights and the pirates broke out in cold sweat. Doflamingo and others also saw their mouths open, with an incredible look. It's not an exaggeration to say that Jack's blow just now was several times stronger than Doflamingo's slaying power. That's the only thing about your half-animalization. Sha Shing tilted her head and felt that it was the same. The so-called semi-beastization was to show the power of beastization in a human form. Then stop playing. At this time, Jack had not made any more reactions, and the Conqueror's Haki shield formed in front of Sha Shing disappeared. After being gathered, it burst out suddenly and directly enveloped Jack the Drow. Conquerors. Jack is a reckless man, but not really stupid, but the moment he was enveloped by Sha Shing Haki, he felt this terrifying, huge deterrent. Impossible. Marine Admiral has the qualifications of a king, and it is so powerful, are you going to be the king of the highest authority in the world government? Jack yelled out at the moment of pressure, and then he trembled, feeling like 10,000 mountains pressing on top. Sip's head and other three real players also understand. Only those who want to become humans can awaken the qualifications of this king and have the prerequisite for release. What kind of boldness and terrifying belief in becoming a king does the young white lion Sha Shing have? At this moment, there was a click. The sturdy deck under Jack's feet, who had exhausted all his strength, was completely cracked. Asterisk. Chapter 23. Drought by Conquerors to kneel down. Advertisement. The outburst of Sha Shing Conqueror's Haki enveloped the entire mammoth. Jack was trembling and supported. The three real fighters behind him were all pressed on the deck, and their expressions were painful and unable to move. The pirates are already glowing one after another. Byakugan is directly stunned by Conqueror's Haki's deterrence. At this moment, Jack couldn't think of anything in his mind, trembling all over, insisting on not letting himself kneel down. Sure enough, brute force. Sha Shing did not fully release her Conqueror's Haki. Jack the Drow relied on his own strength and insisted on resisting it. Don't want me to kneel. Jack's eyes widened, bloodshot. But the next moment, his complexion changed drastically. Sha Shing smiled slightly, increasing the suppression of Conqueror's Haki. This piece of air trembled, and the three Conqueror's Haki, who was actually lying on the ground, spit out blood, their faces were pale, and they completely gave up resistance and stopped moving. But Jack the Drow's legs finally couldn't resist the suppression of Sha Xing's Conqueror's Haki. He knelt down on both knees, smashing the deck under his knees, and sinking half of his body. The ocean caused a huge wave centered on the mammoth, and the strong wind dispersed. The cadres such as Doflamingo, Disolo, and Torpal were completely stunned there, with shocked expressions on their faces. Jack the Drow couldn't resist the suppression of Sha Xing's Conqueror's Haki. This. People like Diamante and Pika were completely speechless. Doflamingo is even more aware of Jack's terrifying power in the three plagues. How terrifying is this white lion's Haki? I haven't even made a real shot so far. There was a trembling color under Doflamingo's torn glasses. I didn't expect that Sha Shing would not give the face of four emperors Kaido at all, it was directly a strong suppression, and it was still a breathtaking scene. We were wrong again. This young guy is a real evildoer, so he can easily suppress Jack the Drow, and he has an admiral-level battle. Disolo swallowed and said in surprise. This time, from the perspective of an onlooker, Doflamingo and the team can really see the power of Sha Shing clearly. The terrifying Conqueror's Haki and the mystery that has never actually been shot. Everyone at Marine cheered. What about the three plagues of beasts pirates? It's not that even the White Lion Admiral's Conqueror's Haki can't hold it. These general-level Marine soldiers couldn't help but say. In the face of various attacks, the three beasts pirates and Jack the Drow couldn't break the defense, shaking. Conqueror's Haki directly suppressed the pirates on the ship. Momoshiki Gion is holding his long knife, eyes trembling at Sha Shing, who jumps over without moving, lazy. A smile appeared on an expression that was taken for granted. Jack is planted. Sha Shing yawned boredly, and the pirate fainted, vomiting blood and lying motionless on the ground. Jack couldn't move even more, and half of his body with blood from the corner of his mouth sank into the deck. Turning around and jumping back to the warship, Sha Shing controlled her power well this time, and landed gently on the deck. Don't forget to take a cold look at Doflamingo, Disolo and others. When looking back at the mammoth again, the terrifying Conqueror's Haki directly enveloped the entire pirate ship. There was a loud bang. The entire pirate ship was torn apart by Sha Xing's Conqueror's Haki and disintegrated directly. Jack and all his men sank to the bottom of the sea. White Lion. Advertisement. Doflamingo and Disolo felt a surge of coldness at this moment, and they dared not look directly at Sha Xing's eyes. Doflamingo only fully understood at this moment. This White Lion Admiral doesn't matter at all to offend four emperors Kaido. Even in this special period. Marine, You can't underestimate it. Disolo couldn't imagine how powerful a monster like Sha Shing was. When Doflamingo and others reacted, Sha Shing had already returned to the recliner on the bow of the warship, and was instructing his marine to prepare the pineapple pie. The pineapple pie in this department is even more delicious. Sha Shing thought of the deliciousness that made him want to stop, and immediately let his subordinates continue on their way. Momosuke Gion also looked at Sha Shing helplessly. As soon as this guy finished fighting pirates, he thought about going back and eating. The storm of Jack the Drow passed. Doflamingo and others were also completely honest and stayed on the warship properly. The situation is better than others, and Doflamingo still has a lot of dissatisfaction with Sha Shing in his heart. Jack sank into the sea, and whether he can survive falling into the sea is one thing, but if the four emperors Kaido knows about these things. Doflamingo thought to himself, still wanting to see how Sha Shing was taught. For several days at sea, following the ocean currents, Sha Shing and Momosuke Gion led Doflamingo and others through the Red Line to Marineford. And on the other side, in the second half of the Grand Line, on the ghost island of Wanokuni in New World, Kaido was sipping the wine, his face flushed a bit. The sheer size and ferocious appearance are frightening. At this moment Quinn walked in with a sad expression on his face. Jack still can't get in touch. Kaido put down the wine gourd in his hand and spoke to the two of them. A sad look on his face shows that this is still the case. Jack, who went to fetch the man-made devil fruit, can't be reached at all. Even Doflamingo and others in Marineford could not be reached. Yes, Master Kaido, Quinn said helplessly after smoking a cigar. Jack, this idiot wouldn't have done something stupid again, right? Kaido couldn't help yelling when he heard the answer. My heart is very irritable. At this time, a huge toothless pterosaur flew in and turned into a king's figure. Master Kaido, with the latest news, Doflamingo and his business partners were forcibly taken away by Marine No. 4 Admiral, and Jack was sunk by the White Lion a long time ago. The fruit can't be shipped back right away. Upon entering, King reported directly to Kaido. Joker was forcibly taken away. Kaido jumped into a thunder, and threw the flask to the ground, his eyes staring and stood up. Quinn also showed a surprised expression. I went to Dressrosa to investigate and found that it was the 4th Admiral White Lion who went to invite Joker and was defeated and taken away. The White Lion might use Conqueror's Haki. King spoke solemnly. Conquerors. There is such a talent. Kaido narrowed his eyes and said in surprise. Marine owns Conqueror's Haki, which is very rare, except for the Marshal, a veteran Garp can awaken such qualifications. Asterisk. Chapter 24. A man who makes Shichibukai jealous. Advertisement. Yes, Master Kaido, Jack has sent someone to rescue him, and he is sending him back on the ship. It looks like the injury is the same as Conqueror's Haki's shock suppression. King hesitated when he spoke. The injuries on his body were not likely to be injured by force, nor were he injured by moves. Jack was stunned and injured internally. The conclusion is amazing. You mean that the White Lion not only awakens Conquerors, it is also very powerful and can defeat Jack by relying on Conquerors. Kaido shook his head, looking incredulous. How old is he? Conqueror's Haki is almost above the top level, and even the old rival red-haired Shanks, the 4 emperors who use Haki, can't do it. It's just speculation. Other possibilities are minimal. Kaido sir, what should we do? King didn't believe it too much, but he couldn't think of other possibilities. Thinking about it, he couldn't help but feel a little shocked. If it was so, the White Lion would be terrible. Kaido was only surprised when he heard King's report. Awakening and releasing Conquerors wasn't that strange, but he didn't think it might be so powerful. But Doflamingo was taken away, Jack was sunk, what about his man-made devil fruit? Kaido was still full of anger, and lifted the mace beside him. Master Kaido, what are you? Both King and Quinn were startled when Kaido was furious. Naval Headquarters. The 4th Admiral White Lion. Kaido roared and rammed a big hole directly in the wall. When King and Quinn ran out, Kaido has turned into a huge blue dragon in the surging of purple thunder, his limbs are burning with flames, his feet are on the clouds and he flies in the direction of Marineford. A few days later, in Marineford Naval Headquarters, Sha Shing and others finally arrived. At this time, Sha Shing ran directly to his residence after getting off the boat, saying that he would not report anything to Sengoku with Momosuke. This road is too tired, I will go to sleep first. Sha Shing coughed twice and ran away. TV video bugs and pineapple pie are waiting for themselves. Momosuke Gion shook his head helplessly, and went to report to Marshal Sengoku first, while the group of Doflamingo was led to the meeting room by Marine Rear Admiral. The Marshal's office, 3 Admiral, Garp, and Crane are all present. White Lion went directly to the residence. Tell him to come first after eating. Seeing that Sha Shing hadn't come, Marshal Sengoku also understood that the slacker had gone back to Xingyu again. The last Doflamingo has also arrived, and the pre-war meeting will be held soon. Yes, Marshal. The correspondent saluted and went to inform Sha Shing. Marshal Sengoku chuckled for a while, and stood up to greet the 3 Admiral, Po and others, and Momosuke Gion and walked to the meeting room. And Momosuke Gion just wanted to report on Jack the Drow, but there was no time, so she had to follow up first. In the meeting room, Marshal Sengoku, Akainu, Aokiji and others entered. Seeing Doflamingo still wearing broken glasses, the injuries on his body can be clearly seen, especially for Disolo and Toripal. Marshal Sengoku, I haven't seen him for a while. Even though Doflamingo was a little embarrassed, he said hello first, but still arrogantly smiled. After all, even at Marine, his identity is extraordinary. An alternative half-celestial dragons. Marshal Sengoku stood straight with his head held up and his eyes looked at Disolo with a little surprise. Aokiji, Kizaru and others were also taken aback for a while, and sat down one after another. Advertisement. This golden casino Disolo is a powerful foreign aid invited back by the way. Momosuke Gion coughed and said seriously. It was brought back forcibly by Sha Shing. Sengoku has read the information and knows that this Disolo is secretly tricky with celestial dragons. It's just that Doflamingo and this Disolo group are a little embarrassed. Gion, what's going on? Marshal Sengoku couldn't help but ask back. They said they were taken back, but they didn't say that they all had internal injuries on their bodies. That, Admiral the White Lion did it with Conqueror's Haki. Momosuke Gion explained seriously. Sengoku looked at him for a moment, then hesitated for a while, and then figured out the general things in his mind. It is estimated that this Doflamingo was a little uncooperative when Sha Shing was too young. But now that Marineford is here, there is no need to worry. Now in Shichibukai, most of the people have come. Wait for the Shichibukai to come to the meeting room, plus 4 Admiral and Marine mid-level seniors need to have a pre-war meeting. Marshal Sengoku, what is the origin of this White Lion Sha Shing? A Marine will awaken Conqueror's Haki. Are you not surprised? And Conqueror's Haki is so strong. Doflamingo put his legs on the table and couldn't help asking with a puzzled look. The White Lion is Marine's 4th Admiral. Isn't he strong? Marshal Sengoku said flatly, a little funny in his heart. You can imagine how cramped and embarrassed this sea gangster was. Just one thing is that you have today. As for the awakening of Conqueror's Haki, this is innate, and it is not that it is impossible to awaken in Marine, but it is difficult, nothing strange. Akainu and other 3 Admiral and Garp Vice Admiral both have a plain face. Xia Xing's Conqueror's Haki can suppress Doflamingo very well. After all, even Akainu can't break it, and there are powerful top moves combining Conquerors and armed colors. Doflamingo grumbled, indeed, that guy is the 4th Admiral, and he has always been underestimated by people like himself. Afterwards, Hawkeye Mahawk and others arrived, and they were all arranged by Marshal Sengoku to come to the meeting room to discuss matters. After all, it takes a certain amount of interest to exchange for Shichibukai to fight against the Whitebeard pirates. So we started talking. In the villa behind the fortress, Sha Shing is trying to turn on the TV worm to see what she can see. She is still eating the pineapple pie prepared by the chef of Naval Headquarters, with a pleasant expression on her face. Huh, do you want to go? Who knows? Marshal Sengoku insisted on letting him participate in this pre-war meeting. After all, it is Admiral. No matter how lazy Sha Shing wants to be, she still has to perform her duties. Reluctantly, Sha Shing could only get up and go reluctantly. When they first arrived in the conference room, all the Shichibukai present saw the young Sha Shing wearing the rank of Admiral, and they all understood that this is the newly appointed Marine 4th Admiral White Lion. White Lion. Doflamingo and Desolo's look at Xia Xing's complexion is not very optimistic. This is the 4th Admiral. Hawkeye Mahawk, the Empress Hancock, and Gecko Moria, the violent coon bears all became dignified. The first time I saw the real person Sha Shing, he secretly said that he was really young. Xia Xing's youthful face and lazy temperament seemed very daunting. But Mahawk, who has the sharp eyes of an eagle, frowned, and couldn't see anything from the photo. It wasn't until I saw him look closely that he discovered the contradictory aura of Sha Shing. Lazy and Haki coexist. Not easy. The female emperors Hancock and Gecko Moria, Bao Kunshong and others did not see that many, but thought that Sha Shing could sit in the position of Marine Admiral at such an age. Whether there is moisture, it does not seem like a strong person. Bye. Only Blackbeard saw Sha Shing come in, with a few drops of cold sweat appearing on his face, watching with dread. Asterisk. Chapter 25. Kaido makes a big noise at Naval Headquarters. Advertisement. Some of you in Shichibukai have already seen White Lions, and some have not. I'm still going to introduce it to you solemnly. This is Marine's new 4th Admiral, the White Lion Sha Shing. Marshal Sengoku saw the arrival of Sha Shing and said, pointing to Sha Shing. As soon as Sha Shing walked in, she was still chewing on pineapple pie, but Marshal Sengoku introduced herself to everyone. Hello everyone. Standing at the door of the meeting room, Sha Shing greeted lazily, and then found a chair for herself and collapsed. While Mahawk, Hancock and others were curiously observing Sha Shing, Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral also rushed to this meeting room, and soon the meeting began. Now that everyone is here, everyone knows that this time the Shichibukai and Marine elites are called together for the public execution of Firefist Ace. At the time of the execution, there will be a battle with the Whitebeard pirates. Marshal Sengoku was in the first place and started the meeting very seriously. With Whitebeard's distorted temper, he will definitely come to rescue Ace. The pirates of New World and Marine know this well. Marine has assembled more than 100,000 elite Marine warriors from all over the world, most of them are general-level masters, 4 Admiral, and the Headquarters Vice Admiral and the Giant Vice Admiral. Sengoku explained Marine's combat power, causing Doflamingo, Disolo, Gecko Moria, and others to shrink. Blackbeard teach. Marine has assembled this lineup. The strongest man in the world. We will not take it lightly. By then, 4 Admiral will sit on the stage of execution. Your Shichibukai's mission is to play against the captains of the Whitebeard pirates at the mouth of the harbor. When Marshal Sengoku said Shichibukai's mission, everyone's expressions were different. They didn't care what the task was, they just accepted the call and acted according to their liking. But Blackbeard Teach lowered his head secretly, not knowing what he was thinking. 100,000 Marine elites will be all over Oak Square. Marshal Sengoku spoke out part of the planned battle plan at the meeting. The main thing is the location and some things to pay attention to, and did not say too many confidential things. After all, Shichibukai is also a pirate. Next to Kizaru Pelusolino's seat, Sha Shing sat slumped and yawned a little, and Akainu couldn't help but glared at him. This guy is so lazy in meetings. Marshal Sengoku, let us Shichibukai stand on the front line of defense and use the White Lion Admiral's super strong Conqueror's Haki to first suppress the Whitebeard Pirates squad captain. Isn't it better? I believe even those New World guys can't easily resist Haki of the White Lion. Listening to Marshal Sengoku talking about the battle plan, Doflamingo said with an inexplicable smile on his raised head. Conqueror's Haki. The pirate Empress Hancock, Gecko Moria, and Kukun Shang all looked at Sha Shing in amazement. Even Hakai Mahawk, who rarely fluctuates, turned his head and looked over in surprise. Will Marine Admiral use Conqueror's Haki? King's qualifications. Doflamingo, aren't you kidding? A Marine Admiral who bears Conqueror's Haki, does he want to be the king of the world government? Advertisement. Gecko Moria said with a look of horror and disbelief. That's a fake. I have personally experienced it. A powerful Conqueror's Haki like White Lion Admiral can easily suppress me and Disilo. Even those famous team captains are fine. Doflamingo once again spoke astonishingly. All the injuries on his body were exposed, so that Shichibukai like Mahawk had to believe it, and his heart was shaken. How to say this is heavenly yaksha, Doflamingo, one of Shichibukai, and in front of so many people at Marine, he said that he was suppressed by Haki. Seeing the countenance of Marine, Sha Shing is a super strong Conqueror's Haki, I am afraid it is true. Hakai Mahawk and Pirate Empress Hancock both had their expressions solemn. Fourth, the Admiral White Lion is so powerful. Sha Shing does no Conqueror's Haki, but the battle plan is well thought out. I will consider your suggestions, but we may not only face the Whitebeard pirates. It is inevitable that there will be some guys thinking about fishing in troubled waters. Marshal Sengoku hadn't thought of this fighting method, and he didn't care about Doflamingo's words. Sooner or later everyone would know. But a war started, who would say that only the Whitebeard pirates appeared? Why Admiral the White Lion bears Conqueror's Haki? Crane Vice Admiral also said lightly beside him at this time. Sha Shing has no problem with his background. As for the king of the world, that is his ability. Doflamingo didn't say anything after seeing Ms. Crane talking. It was just a whim just now. If you can arrange Sha Shing to the front, you have to have a good show. As long as you are in the front, it is easy to play against the captain of the Whitebeard Pirates squad, and even twist the old guy with Whitebeard. Suddenly, the meeting room became quiet, and some Marines who didn't know were also surprised and resisted strong curiosity to ask questions. Mahawk and Hancock, unknown Shichibukai, looked at Sha Shing in shock. And at this moment, a dragon chant came from the abrupt distant sky. Sengoku turned his head and looked at the heavenly dragon outside the door, and saw a huge dragon body rolling over with dark clouds. Doflamingo heard that it was Kaido's voice, and couldn't help but smile. He actually came, Admiral the White Lion. Doflamingo smiled and said to Sha Shing, his expression extremely playful. Only Kaido, the strongest creature, dared to rush to naval headquarters alone. He came to the White Lion for revenge. Marshal Sengoku was also surprised by the sudden huge movement and recognized Kaido as the monster. After all, this is not the first time Kaido has come to naval headquarters to provoke him. Knowing that Kaido caused the movement, Hakai Mahawk, Hancock, Blackbeard Teach and others all looked startled, and Gecko Moria gritted his teeth. Kaido came to naval headquarters at this time. Why did he appear here? Everyone stood up and walked outside.